Welcome, and let the world grow soft and quiet around you. As your breathing slows all on its own, imagine drifting gently upward from the earth, rising slowly through the calm night air, past the drifting clouds and out into the open and peaceful dark, until a soft and silver light comes gently into view, a pale and familiar face, cratered and quiet, hanging serenely in the black. That gentle world is the moon, our oldest companion in all the sky, and tonight we will drift slowly beside her, and speak softly of how, little by little across the ages, she is quietly slipping away from us. This is not a tale meant to trouble you, but only to fill you with a calm and drowsy wonder. There is nothing at all you need to hold on to now. Just let the words wash over you, and welcome back to Beyond the Stars. The first fact is that the moon is the Earth's one and only natural satellite, the single faithful world that circles us through the long and quiet dark. Every other planet in our solar system either has no moon at all, like Venus and Mercury, or a whole crowded family of many, like Jupiter and Saturn, yet the Earth keeps just this one great companion. She is so large and so bright and so close that she has watched over every night of every life that has ever been lived upon our world, drifting patiently around us for more than 4 billion gentle and unhurried years, a lamp in the darkness that no generation has ever known the sky without. The second fact is that the moon measures about 3,474 kilometers across, roughly a quarter of the width of our own Earth. A stone this size would be counted a proper world in its own right, larger even than the dwarf planet Pluto. And indeed the moon is unusually large compared with the planet she orbits, so wide and so near that she fills the imagination the way no distant point of starlight ever could. She is a soft gray sphere turning silently in the calm and open night, a whole world of mountains and plains and craters, close enough that with only modest eyes we can trace the very shapes upon her face. The third fact tells us that the moon drifts, on average, some 384,400 kilometers away from us, a distance so vast that you could line up nearly 30 Earths, side by side, in the empty space between our world and hers, and still not quite fill the gap. Light itself, the swiftest thing there is, needs more than a second to cross it. She is far, and yet by cosmic measure she is our nearest neighbor of all, resting quietly just beyond the edge of our own blue air, closer to us than any planet ever comes, the one other world upon which human feet have ever walked. The fourth fact is that the light of the moon, which is only borrowed sunlight softly reflected back to us, takes just about 1¼ seconds to cross that great gulf and reach your waiting eyes, so that when you gaze up at her tonight, you are seeing her not quite as she is this very instant, but as she was a heartbeat ago, her gentle glow having drifted patiently across the dark to find you, here now listening. It is a small thing, that little delay, and yet it is a quiet reminder that even our nearest companion is reached only across time, that to look outward into space is always, in some soft measure, to look gently into the past. The fifth fact reveals that the moon is the fifth largest natural satellite in all of our solar system, surpassed in size only by 4 great moons that circle the giant planets Jupiter and Saturn far away. Those 4 are Ganymede, Titan, Callisto, and Io, distant icy and rocky giants in their own right. And yet none of those larger moons is anywhere near so grand beside its own planet as ours is beside the Earth, for they orbit worlds hundreds of times more massive than our own. This makes our pale companion a rare and remarkable thing, a great round world tethered gently to a small blue one, a partnership almost without equal in the family of the sun. The sixth fact is that the moon has almost no atmosphere at all, only the faintest and thinnest trace of gas clinging to her surface, so tenuous it is very nearly a perfect vacuum. And so upon the moon there is no wind, no weather, no soft blue sky, and no drifting cloud, only a black and star-filled dark hanging over the gray and silent ground, even in the brightness of the lunar day. This stillness is so complete and so ancient that a footprint pressed into her dust may linger there, undisturbed by any breeze or any rain. For 1,000,000 quiet years or more, a gentle mark preserved in perfect and unbroken silence. The seventh fact tells us that the pull of gravity upon the surface of the moon is only about 1/6 as strong as it is here on Earth, so that a person who could barely lift a heavy stone upon our world could toss it easily upon the moon, and an astronaut in a bulky suit could rise and float in slow and dreamlike bounds. This is why the explorers who walked there seemed to move as if through a gentle dream, drifting over the gray ground in long, soft, floating leaps, as though the ordinary weight of the world had quietly let them go, and every step became a slow and buoyant glide across the dust. The eighth fact is that the moon has no shield of air to hold the warmth of the sun, and so her temperatures swing to great and quiet extremes. In the long lunar day, the sunlit ground may climb to well over 100 degrees above the boiling point of water, while in the long lunar night it plunges to more than 170 degrees below freezing. It is a world of fierce heat and bitter cold, changing not with weather but simply with the slow turning of light and shadow. And in the deepest craters near her poles, where no sunlight has fallen for billions of years, the cold grows colder still, cold enough to trap and hold water ice through all the ages. The ninth fact reveals that the surface of the moon is painted in two great and gentle kinds of terrain: the bright and rugged highlands, the pale and ancient mountains scarred by countless craters, and the darker, smoother plains we call the Maria, the Latin word for seas, though no water has ever filled them. These soft gray markings are the very shapes that people across all the ages have gazed upon and imagined into faces and rabbits and quiet dreaming things. The bright highlands are the moon's oldest crust, while the dark seas are younger floods of frozen lava, and together they compose the familiar face that has looked down upon every human night. The 10th fact is that the dark lunar seas, the Maria, are not seas at all but vast plains of ancient volcanic rock. Long ago, molten lava welled up from within the moon and flooded across great basins carved by mighty impacts, then cooled and hardened into smooth dark basalt. And so those gentle shadows you see upon her face are the frozen memory of a time when the moon still burned softly from within, an age now long and quietly gone. These dark plains lie mostly upon the near side that faces us, so that the very pattern we know so well is really a map of where, billions of years ago, the moon's hidden fires once rose gently to the surface. The 11th fact tells us that the whole surface of the moon is covered in a fine, powdery gray soil called regolith. It is not soft earth like ours, but a layer of shattered rock and dust, ground down over billions of years by the endless rain of tiny meteorites striking a world with no air to shield it. This lunar dust is sharp and clinging and strangely fine, unlike anything on Earth, for no water or wind has ever smoothed its jagged edges. It is the very stuff into which the first astronauts pressed their historic and enduring footprints, and it clung to their suits and their tools, the ancient powdered skin of a world that has been quietly weathering under the stars for eons. The 12th fact is that the face of the moon is marked by countless craters, some vast and some vanishingly small, each one the scar of a stone that fell from the dark long ago. And because the moon has no wind and no rain and no rivers to wear them away, these craters may endure almost unchanged for billions of years. The moon's cratered face is a patient and faithful record of the ancient bombardment that once swept through all our young solar system, a bombardment the Earth endured as well, though our world has long since erased its own scars beneath ocean and forest and drifting stone. On the moon, that violent history remains written plainly, preserved in the silence. The 13th fact reveals that some of the moon's craters bear the names of great thinkers and astronomers of old. There is Tycho, with its brilliant streaks of pale debris spraying out across the surface, and Copernicus and Kepler and many more. When you gaze upon the full moon, Those bright rays fanning out from Tycho near the southern edge are splashes of fresh material flung wide by an impact that struck only about 100 million years or so ago, still young by the moon's long reckoning. Each ray is a frozen splash, a spray of shattered rock thrown across hundreds of kilometers and then held motionless forever in the airless calm. A quiet fireworks turned to stone. The 14th fact is that the moon reflects only about 12 parts in every 100 of the sunlight that falls upon her. Her surface is really quite dark, closer in shade to worn asphalt or an old chalkboard than to bright fresh snow. And yet, because she hangs so near to us, and the sun that lights her is so fierce, she still shines down as the brightest object in all our night sky, soft and silver and serene. It is a gentle paradox worth resting in, that so dark a world can pour so much soft light upon the sleeping earth, easily bathing our nights in her borrowed glow, bright enough to cast shadows and to shimmer upon the quiet surface of the sea. The 15th fact tells us that the moon has a small inner core, a surrounding mantle, and an outer crust, much as the earth does, though far smaller and long since grown cool and quiet. Deep within her lies a modest core of iron, part of it still soft and partly molten even now, wrapped in a thick rocky mantle and a crust of pale stone. It is a faithful and miniature echo of the layered world upon which you rest tonight, built in the same ancient fires, from much the same materials, and settled long ago into the same patient arrangement of dense heart and lighter shell. A small world made in quiet imitation of the larger one it circles. The 16th fact is that the moon shows us her changing phases as she circles the earth, from the thin new crescent to the swelling gibbous to the round and glowing full. These phases are only the play of sunlight and shadow, the sun forever lighting one half of her while the other lies in dark, and we below watching that bright half turn slowly toward us and away. It is a gentle and dependable rhythm that has marked the passing of time for every people that ever lived, a slow silver clock in the heavens. Nothing about the moon herself truly changes as she waxes and wanes. It is only our angle of view and the angle of the sun quietly shifting through the month. The 17th fact reveals that the moon takes about 29.5 days to pass through one full cycle of her phases, from one new moon to the next. This is the synodic month, and its slow and faithful turning gave humanity one of its first great clocks in the sky. From it we drew the very idea of a month, a soft silver dial by which our distant ancestors measured out their seasons and their festivals and the quiet passage of their lives. Long before any written calendar, before any mechanical clock, people counted the moons, watching that bright face swell and fade and return, ordering their whole lives by the patient rhythm of our nearest companion. The 18th fact is that the moon actually completes a single orbit around the Earth, measured against the distant stars, in about 27.3 days, a little shorter than the cycle of her phases. The difference arises because the Earth itself is moving onward around the sun all the while, so the moon must travel a small extra distance each month to catch up and align once more with the sun and Earth. It is a gentle bit of celestial arithmetic playing out silently overhead. The reason the month of the phases runs a touch longer than the month of the stars, and a quiet sign of how our companions' dance is woven together with our own greater journey around the sun. The 19th fact tells us that the moon does not glow with any light of her own at all. She is a cold and dark stone, and every soft beam of moonlight that has ever fallen upon a sleeping world or shimmered upon a quiet sea is simply sunlight, caught upon her gray surface and scattered gently back to us across the dark. The moon is a mirror, and a faithful one, patiently returning to the night a little of the light of our own distant star. When you rest tonight in the soft glow of a full moon, you are truly resting in gentle, second-hand sunlight, light that has crossed to the moon and back to reach you in the dark. The 20th fact is that the moon and the Earth are bound together not merely as neighbors but almost as partners. So large is she beside us, Some astronomers gently call the pair a double world, for the moon holds fully a quarter of the Earth's own width, a far greater share than any other major moon claims of its planet. Her steady pull shapes our tides and steadies our seasons in ways we shall soon explore, and in turn the Earth holds her close and slowly, gently lets her drift. For now, simply rest in the thought of that faithful gray companion, drifting quietly at our side through the endless dark, tethered to us by an ancient and unbreakable bond. The 21st fact reveals that the moon was born some 4.5 billion years ago, in the earliest and most violent days of our young solar system. She is very nearly as old as the Earth herself, a companion that has been with our world almost from the very beginning. And the story of how she came to be is one of the grandest and most dramatic tales in all of astronomy, a story of a titanic collision in the dark that would change our world forever. Yet the ending of that violent story is the gentle moon we know, a soft light in the night, proof that even the most cataclysmic of beginnings can settle, across the long ages, into something calm and quiet and beautiful. The 22nd fact tells us that most astronomers now believe the moon was formed when a young planet about the size of Mars struck the newborn Earth a colossal, glancing blow. This lost world has been given the name Theia, and its collision with our own was so tremendous that it very nearly tore the young Earth apart. The impact flung a vast cloud of shattered, molten rock high into orbit around the wounded and glowing planet below. It is almost beyond imagining that the serene gray moon you gaze upon tonight was born from so unthinkable a violence, a whole world colliding with our own in the fiery dawn of the solar system, and yet the quiet evidence points steadily toward just such a beginning. The 23rd fact is that from that great ring of debris flung up by the giant impact, the moon slowly gathered herself together over a surprisingly short span of time, perhaps only a matter of years or centuries. The countless glowing fragments circling the Earth drew together under their own gravity and coalesced into a single molten sphere. It was a new world born from the wreckage of a cosmic collision, still red-hot and softly glowing in the ancient dark. Where once there had been only a scattered ring of rubble orbiting a shattered Earth, gravity patiently gathered the pieces, drawing them inward and together, until a whole round moon emerged, glowing softly, to begin her long companionship with our world. The 24th fact reveals that the newborn moon began her life as a world of molten rock, wrapped almost entirely in a great and glowing ocean of magma. There were no craters yet, no gray plains, no highlands, only a seething sphere of liquid stone, slowly radiating its heat away into the cold of space. Across long ages this magma ocean cooled and hardened, and from it the moon's first crust and mantle slowly took their lasting shape. It is a strange and humbling thought that the still and silent moon of tonight was once an ocean of fire from pole to pole, a glowing world with no solid ground at all, cooling slowly through the dark toward the quiet stone we know. The 25th fact tells us that one of the strongest clues supporting this great impact story lies hidden within the very rocks themselves. When scientists studied the moon rocks brought home by the Apollo astronauts, they found that the delicate chemical fingerprints of the moon's material match those of the Earth's own mantle remarkably closely, far too closely for the two worlds to be strangers. They were, it seems, forged together from the same shattered and mingled stone. This deep kinship, written in the isotopes of the rocks, tells us that the moon is not a captured wanderer nor a world formed apart, but truly a child of the Earth, made of our own substance in that ancient and shaping collision. The 26th fact is that the Apollo missions carried home nearly 400 kilograms of lunar rock and soil, precious samples that scientists still study carefully to this very day. These quiet gray stones, gathered by human hands upon another world, have told us the moon's age and something of her birth and the long story written in her ancient crust. They remain a treasure of knowledge carried back across the dark from our nearest neighbor in the sky. Even now, Decades later, researchers opened sealed portions of those samples with new instruments the first explorers could never have imagined, so that the moon rocks keep patiently giving up their secrets long after the footprints were made. The 27th fact reveals that in her earliest days, the newborn moon orbited the Earth vastly closer than she does now. In that ancient time, she may have hung only a fraction of her present distance away, looming enormous in the sky, many times wider than the moon we know. She was a great and glowing face filling the heavens above a molten and lifeless young Earth, and the tides she raised then were mightier by far. Ever since, across billions of years, she has been drifting slowly and steadily outward, so that the huge near moon of the Earth's youth has become the small, serene, distant companion we gaze upon in the calm of tonight. The 28th fact tells us that as the moon's magma ocean slowly cooled, the lighter minerals within it floated upward like scum upon a pond and hardened into her pale, bright highlands. These ancient rocks, made largely of a stone called anorthosite, are among the oldest surfaces in the whole solar system, dating back well over 4 billion years. They form a crust so old it remembers almost the very dawn of worlds. When you look upon the bright regions of the moon, the pale rugged land between the dark seas, you are gazing upon some of the most ancient rock that human eyes can see anywhere, a surface that has endured almost unchanged since the solar system itself was young. The 29th fact is that after her crust had formed, the young moon endured a long and furious age of bombardment, struck again and again by the countless leftover stones drifting through the early solar system. This violent era carved out the greatest of her craters and vast basins, the mighty wounds that would later fill with lava to become the dark seas we see today. The moon's scarred face is a faithful monument to that ancient and turbulent time. The Earth was battered just as fiercely in those same ages, but our living world has healed and buried its wounds, while the moon has kept hers open and plain, a silent record of a storm of impacts that both worlds once weathered together. The 30th fact reveals that the great dark plains of the moon, her Maria, were formed somewhat later, when molten rock welled up from deep within her and flooded the enormous impact basins. This happened mostly between about 3 and 3.5 billion years ago, when the moon still held enough inner heat to drive slow volcanic flows. Once that heat faded, her volcanism gently ceased, and the moon settled into the long, cold, quiet stillness she keeps to this day. So the familiar pattern of dark seas upon her face is really a kind of frozen clock, marking the last great age when the moon was warm and active within, before she cooled at last into the silent world of tonight. The 31st fact tells us that the moon was once a volcanic world, though her fires have long gone dark. There are no erupting volcanoes upon her now, no rivers of lava, no rising ash, for she is far too small a world to have held her inner heat across so many billions of years. She cooled from the inside out, her molten heart slowly stilling, until at last she became the silent, sleeping stone that circles us tonight. A world's size sets the length of its inner life, and the moon, small as she is, spent her warmth quickly by cosmic reckoning, so that her age of fire is now unimaginably long past, and only the cold and gentle quiet remains. The 32nd fact reveals that deep within the moon there lies a small core of iron, and remarkably, a part of it may still be soft and molten even now. This was discovered by carefully studying the faint seismic waves recorded by instruments the Apollo astronauts left behind upon the surface. So although the moon seems utterly cold and dead upon her surface, a tiny warm ember of her ancient birth may yet linger, hidden far beneath the gray and silent ground. It is a gentle thought that even so still and quiet a world may keep, deep in her heart, a last faint trace of the fire from which she was born, a small warmth held secret beneath all that cold gray dust. The 33rd fact is that unlike the Earth, the moon has no global magnetic field wrapping protectively around her today, and yet the ancient rocks she carries hold within them the faint imprint of magnetism, telling us that long ago, when her core still churned with heat, the young moon may well have possessed a magnetic field of her own. That field has since faded away into stillness, another quiet ember of a warmer, more active past. The rocks remember what the moon herself has long forgotten, preserving in their crystals the direction of a vanished field. A ghostly compass pointing back toward an age when our companion was young and warm and stirring within. The 34th fact tells us that although most of the moon is bone dry, there is water hidden upon her, frozen as ice in the deep and permanently shadowed craters near her poles. In those cold pits, where the low sunlight never reaches and the temperature never rises, water ice has lingered for perhaps billions of years. It is a precious and surprising discovery, for that buried ice may one day sustain the first lasting human outposts upon another world. What once seemed a wholly barren and lifeless stone turns out to guard hidden reservoirs of ice in her darkest hollows, quiet frozen wells that could one day give future explorers water to drink, air to breathe, and even fuel for journeys farther still. The 35th fact reveals that the presence of water ice upon the moon was dramatically confirmed in the year 2009, when a spacecraft was deliberately sent crashing into a shadowed polar crater. In the great plume of debris kicked up by the impact, watching instruments clearly detected the unmistakable signature of water. It was a quiet triumph of exploration, revealing that our seemingly barren companion holds hidden reservoirs of ice within her coldest and darkest hollows. By striking the moon and studying the rising cloud of ancient dust and vapor, we learned that the ice we had long suspected was truly there, waiting in the dark, changing forever how we imagine the future of the moon. The 36th fact is that the moon is not perfectly round, but very gently egg-shaped, drawn slightly outward toward the Earth. The steady pull of our world's gravity, acting across billions of years, has softly stretched her into this shape, with a small bulge pointing forever in our direction. It is one more quiet sign of the deep and lasting bond between our two worlds, written into the very form of the moon herself. Just as the moon raises tides upon the Earth, so too has the Earth shaped the moon, molding her into this gentle, elongated form during the ages when she was young and warm and more easily bent by our steady and patient pull. The 37th fact tells us that the moon still trembles now and then with faint tremors we call moonquakes. Some are stirred by the pull of the Earth's tides upon her, some by the sharp chill of lunar dawn, and some rise from deep within her rocky body. The instruments left by the Apollo astronauts patiently recorded these gentle shudders for years, revealing a world not entirely still, but softly settling and shifting through the long cosmic night. Some of these quakes ring on for a surprisingly long while, for the dry moon rings almost like a bell when struck, her tremors echoing gently through her rock in a way our own wetter, softer Earth never quite does. The 38th fact reveals that the moon and the Earth are very nearly the same age, for they were born together in the same great event. Both worlds count their years from about 4.5 billion years ago, forged in the same violent dawn of the solar system. They have been companions across almost the whole of cosmic history, two worlds turning together through the dark, one blue and living, one gray and still, bound by an ancient and unbroken tie. In all the vast reaches of time since that fiery beginning, the Earth has never once been without her moon, nor the moon without her Earth, the two of them journeying side by side through every age the solar system has ever known. The 39th fact is that the far side of the moon, the hemisphere we can never see from Earth, is strikingly different from the near side we know so well. It is more heavily cratered, more rugged and ancient, and it holds far fewer of the dark volcanic seas that mark the face turned toward us. For all of human history, this hidden face remained a complete mystery, unseen by any living eye, until at last the age of spaceflight lifted the veil from that secret hemisphere. When we finally beheld it, we found not the familiar pattern of dark seas but a rough and pale and battered land, a stranger's face upon the world we thought we knew so well. The 40th fact tells us that the far side of the moon was first glimpsed by human eyes only in the year 1959, when a small robotic spacecraft swung around behind her and sent home the very first blurry photographs of that hidden face. After countless generations of gazing up at the same familiar moon, humanity finally beheld her secret hemisphere. And we found a world stranger and more rugged than the gentle face she had always turned toward home. It was a quiet milestone in the long story of our looking outward, the moment we first saw the part of our nearest neighbor that no human being, in all the ages before, had ever once been permitted to see. The 41st fact is that the moon always shows us the very same face, night after night, year after year, across the whole of human history. The familiar pattern of gray seas and bright highlands never turns away from us. This is no coincidence, but the result of a gentle cosmic lock, a slow embrace worked out over billions of years, in which the moon has come to turn upon herself in perfect step with her journey around the earth. Every person who has ever lived, in every land and every age, has looked up at precisely the same lunar face, for the moon reserves her hidden hemisphere always for the empty dark behind her, and offers only her one known face to the world below. The 42nd fact reveals that this steady facing is called synchronous rotation, and it means the moon spins upon her own axis exactly once for every single orbit she makes around us. She takes about 27 1/3 days to circle the Earth, and precisely that same span to turn once upon herself. And so, as she travels around us, she rotates just enough to keep one hemisphere forever turned toward home, a quiet and perfect balance held across the ages. It is not that the moon fails to spin, as many gently suppose, but rather that she spins in such flawless step with her orbit that the turning and the circling cancel exactly, leaving her face fixed serenely upon the earth. The 43rd fact tells us that because of this, the moon has a near side, which forever faces the earth, and a far side, which forever faces away into deep space. The near side is the face of all our nights and all our poems and all our dreaming, while the far side remained utterly hidden from us until the age of spacecraft. Two hemispheres, one turned always toward her companion, one turned always toward the endless dark. To stand upon the near side would be to live always beneath the earth hanging in the sky. To stand upon the far side would be to never once glimpse our world, only the deep black gulf and the patient, unblinking stars beyond. The 44th fact reveals a gentle misunderstanding worth setting softly to rest. The far side of the moon is often called the dark side, yet it is not dark at all. As the moon moves through her phases, sunlight falls upon every part of her in turn, and the far side receives just as much light across the month as the near side does. It is not dark, only hidden from our eyes, bathed in the same sunlight as the face we know, simply turned always away from us. Indeed, at the time of the new moon, when the near side lies in shadow and the moon seems to vanish from our sky, it is the far side that is fully bathed in the light of the sun. The 45th fact is that although the moon keeps one face toward us, we can actually glimpse a little more than half her total surface over time, thanks to a gentle rocking motion called libration. Because her orbit is slightly tilted and not a perfect circle, she seems to nod and sway ever so softly as she travels, tipping her hidden edges briefly into view. All told, patient observers on Earth can see about 59 parts in every 100 of her surface. So the moon is not quite so secretive as she first appears, for over the slow turning of the months she rocks gently side to side and up and down, allowing us to peer just past her edges at the borderlands of her hidden hemisphere. The 46th fact reveals how this steady facing came to be, through the slow and patient work of the tides across untold ages. In the moon's youth she spun far more quickly, turning many times as she circled the earth, but our world's gravity raised a gentle bulge upon her yielding early body, and the drag of that bulge acted like a soft and endless brake. Little by little, over hundreds of millions of years, it slowed her spin until it matched her orbit exactly, and there it has gently rested ever since. The very same kind of tidal force that the moon now exerts upon our oceans once worked upon the moon herself, patiently stilling her rotation into the perfect, faithful facing we know. The 47th fact tells us that many other moons in our solar system are locked in just the same way to the planets they circle. The great moons of Jupiter, the moons of Saturn, and countless others all keep one face turned forever toward their worlds. Tidal locking is one of the most common and gentle outcomes in all the heavens, the natural resting state toward which two bodies, bound closely together and pulling upon one another, will slowly and inevitably settle across deep time. Our moon's faithful facing, far from being some rare marvel, is really the ordinary destiny of moons everywhere, the quiet place where the endless work of the tides at last comes gently to rest. The 48th fact reveals that the crust of the moon is markedly thinner on the near side than on the far side. The hemisphere that faces us has a slimmer shell of rock, which long ago allowed molten lava to rise more easily and flood the Great Basins, forming the dark Maria we see. The far side, with its thicker crust, held that rising lava back, and so it remained pale and rugged and cratered, its face a study in ancient stone. This deep difference between the two hemispheres is one of the great puzzles of the moon, and it is likely why the face she turns toward us is so gently marked with dark seas, while the hidden face is a rougher and more ancient wilderness of pale highland rock. The 49th fact tells us that from the near side of the moon, the earth would hang almost fixed in the sky, neither rising nor setting, but drifting only gently to and fro in one patch of the heavens. A great blue and white world, nearly 4 times wider than the moon appears to us, turning slowly upon itself and cycling through its own phases. To stand there and gaze up at the unmoving earth would be among the most serene of all imaginable sights. Because the moon keeps one face toward us, the earth in turn keeps one place in the lunar sky, so that a dweller upon the near side would see our world as an ever-present lamp, softly turning but never straying from its patch of black. The 50th fact reveals that this soft light of the earth, shining down upon the moon, is called earthshine, and it is far brighter than moonlight is to us. The earth, wrapped in bright cloud and ocean, reflects a great deal of sunlight, and on the lunar night side that faint blue glow would gently illuminate the gray ground. Here on Earth we sometimes glimpse it too, as a soft ghostly light filling in the dark part of a slender crescent moon. That pale completion of the crescent, sometimes called the old moon in the new moon's arms, is nothing but our own world's light, reflected from the moon back to us, sunlight that has bounced from Earth to moon and home again across the quiet dark. The 51st fact is that the far side of the moon, shielded forever from the noise and radio chatter of the Earth, is prized by astronomers as one of the quietest places in all the inner solar system. There, a great radio telescope could listen to the faint whispers of the distant universe without the endless hum of our own busy world drowning them out. It is a place of profound and perfect radio silence, waiting patiently to become a window onto the deep cosmos. The bulk of the moon herself would stand between such a telescope and the Earth, blocking all our transmissions, so that from that hidden hemisphere we might one day hear the faintest and most ancient signals from the dawn of the universe. The 52nd fact reveals that the moon's own axis is tilted only very slightly, a little more than 1.5 degrees from the plane of her orbit, and because of this small tilt, the moon has almost no seasons at all. Near her poles, the sun forever schemes low along the horizon and never climbs high into the sky. and in the deep crater floors near those poles, where the low sunlight can never reach at all, an eternal frigid darkness reigns, cold enough to trap and hold water ice for the whole age of the solar system. It is precisely this small tilt that makes those permanently shadowed craters possible, cold, quiet wells of eternal night that guard the moon's precious hidden ice. The 53rd fact tells us that the moon rotates very slowly indeed by our familiar reckoning. For a single lunar day, one full cycle of sunlight and darkness upon her surface lasts about 29.5 Earth days, roughly 2 weeks of unbroken sunshine, followed by roughly 2 weeks of unbroken night. To stand upon the moon would be to watch the sun creep across the black sky with almost imperceptible slowness, a day and a night each stretching on and on. In that long lunar day, the ground would grow searingly hot beneath a sun that scarcely seems to move, and in the long lunar night it would plunge into a deep and bitter cold, the two great slow halves of the moon's unhurried turning. The 54th fact reveals that the dwarf planet Pluto and its large moon Charon are locked to one another even more completely than the Earth and Moon are. There, both worlds keep the same face turned toward each other at all times, each forever showing the other but a single hemisphere. It is a glimpse of a deeper resting state, a full mutual embrace, and it hints gently at a distant possible future for our own Earth and Moon, should they ever be given time enough. From one side of Pluto, Charon hangs forever motionless in the sky, while from the other side it is never seen at all, the two small worlds gazing eternally into one another's faces as they drift together through the far cold reaches of the solar system. The 55th fact tells us that the moon glides around the Earth not in a perfect circle but in a gently stretched ellipse, so that her distance from us is always slowly changing. At her nearest approach, which astronomers call perigee, she draws in closer to us, while at her farthest point, called apogee, she drifts more distant. This slow monthly breathing of her orbit means the moon appears just a little larger or smaller in our sky from week to week. The difference is real, some tens of thousands of kilometers between her nearest and farthest points, though it is subtle enough that the eye rarely notices it, a quiet swelling and shrinking of the moon's face across the turning of each month. The 56th fact reveals that when a full moon happens to fall near her closest approach to the Earth, she appears noticeably larger and brighter, an event that has come to be called a supermoon. At such a time she may seem a good deal bigger and shine more brilliantly than a full moon that rises near her most distant point. It is a gentle illusion of nearness, a reminder that even our steadfast companion is forever drifting a little closer and a little farther as she circles us. The change is modest, yet a supermoon rising low upon the horizon, swollen and golden, is among the loveliest of common sights, our companion at her nearest, gazing down a touch more brightly upon the sleeping world. The 57th fact is that the moon and the Earth do not simply orbit one about the other in the way a small thing circles a great fixed one. Instead, both worlds swing gently around a shared center of mass, a balance point that the two bodies turn about together. Because the Earth is so much heavier, this point lies deep within the Earth's own body, well beneath the surface, but around it our world too traces a small and quiet monthly circle. And so the Earth is not truly still while the moon goes around. Rather, the two of them dance about their common center, the great world tracing a little loop and the small one a great one, forever balanced against each other across the dark. The 58th fact reveals that this shared balance point between the Earth and the moon lies about 4,600 kilometers from the Earth's center, still comfortably inside our planet. And so, rather than sitting perfectly still while the moon goes around, the Earth itself wobbles in a small monthly loop about that inner point. The two worlds dance together, each responding to the other, bound in a gentle and unbroken gravitational partnership that has held firm for billions of years. That balance point lies well beneath the Earth's surface, a little more than 2/3 of the way out from the center, so that our whole planet swings each month about a hidden pivot buried deep within itself. The 59th fact tells us that the far side of the moon holds one of the largest and deepest impact craters known in the entire solar system, a vast basin near her southern pole. It is an ancient wound gouged out by a tremendous collision in the moon's distant youth, so enormous and so deep that it has punched down and revealed material from far below her surface. This great hidden basin is a treasure to scientists, a window into the deep interior of our companion world. By studying the rock exposed in that immense ancient scar, we can peer into layers of the moon that lie ordinarily far out of reach, reading in them the story of how our companion was built, long ago, from the inside out. The 60th fact reveals that everything we have spoken of, the steady facing, the near side and the far, the slow lunar day, and the gentle rocking of libration, all arise from the same quiet force that binds the moon to the earth. It is gravity, and above all the tides it raises, that have shaped the moon's motion and locked her gaze upon us. And it is these very same tides, as we shall now drift on to explore, that are gently carrying her away. The moon's faithful facing and her slow departure are not two separate tales but one, both written by the endless patient work of the tides, the very same force expressed in two different quiet ways across the long ages. The 61st fact is that the moon's gravity reaches across the great gulf of space to gently tug upon the earth, and most visibly of all upon our oceans. The waters of the sea, free to flow and gather, respond to her pull by heaping up into a soft bulge on the side of the earth facing the moon. This gathering of the waters is the tide, the slow and faithful breathing of the seas that the moon has stirred since the oceans first formed. Twice each day the tide rises and falls upon every shore, a rhythm so ancient and so dependable that it has become almost a heartbeat of the living earth. And it is the moon, drifting silently overhead, that gently sets its slow and patient time. The 62nd fact reveals that there is not one tidal bulge upon the earth but two, one on the side facing the moon and another on the side facing away. The near bulge is drawn up by the moon's stronger pull upon the closer water, while the far bulge arises because the solid earth itself is pulled away from the water on the opposite side. And so the oceans swell gently at 2 points at once, on the near face of the world and the far. It is this pairing of bulges that gives most coasts 2 high tides in each day rather than one, the seas gathering into 2 great gentle mounds, one reaching toward the moon and one reaching quietly away from her across the whole turning earth. The 63rd fact tells us that because the earth turns once each day beneath these 2 tidal bulges, most coastlines experience 2 high tides and 2 low tides in the course of roughly every 24 hours. As your stretch of shore rotates into a bulge, the waters rise, and as it turns away, they gently fall. This steady rhythm of the sea, rising and falling twice a day, is the direct and faithful signature of the moon's quiet pull upon our world. The bulges themselves stay roughly fixed beneath the moon, and it is the spinning earth that carries each shore through them in turn, so that the tide we watch coming in is really our own coastline sweeping into the heaped-up waters raised by the moon. The 64th fact reveals that the moon is not the only body that raises tides upon the earth, for the distant sun does so as well. Though the sun is vastly larger and more massive, it is also vastly farther away, and so its tidal pull upon our oceans is only a little under half as strong as the moon's. Together the two of them, the near small moon and the far great sun, shape the ever-changing pattern of the tides that wash upon every shore. It is a gentle lesson in how tides work, that nearness matters more than sheer size, so that our small close companion outdoes the mighty distant sun in stirring the waters of the world, and the two together weave the tides into their subtle monthly dance. The 65th fact tells us that when the sun and the moon line up together, at the new moon and the full moon, their tidal pulls combine and reinforce one another, raising especially high tides we call spring tides, and when they stand at right angles to each other, near the quarter moons, their pulls partly cancel, giving the gentler, milder neap tides. So the great rhythm of the sea rises and eases across the month, following the slow celestial alignment of the sun and the moon. These spring tides have nothing to do with the season of spring, but take their name from the way the waters seem to spring up higher, the strongest tides of all arriving faithfully around each new and full moon as the sun lends its pull to the moons. The 66th fact reveals that the moon raises tides not only in the yielding oceans but even in the solid rock of the earth itself. The whole crust of our world flexes gently outward and inward as the moon passes overhead, rising and falling by as much as 30 centimeters. The very ground beneath you breathes softly with the tides, lifting and settling by the width of a forearm. A slow stone tide that no eye can see but sensitive instruments can faithfully measure. It is a strange and gentle thought that the solid earth is not so solid after all, but flexes softly under the moon's touch just as the seas do, the land itself rising and falling by a hand's width twice in every day. The 67th fact tells us that the tidal bulge of the oceans does not sit perfectly beneath the moon, but is carried a little ahead of her by the swift turning of the earth. Our world rotates once a day, far faster than the moon moves along her month-long orbit, and this rapid spinning drags the raised water forward, so that the bulge runs slightly ahead of the moon's position rather than lying directly under her. This small offset, this gentle lead, is easy to overlook, and yet it turns out to matter a very great deal, for it is precisely this misplacement of the bulge that quietly powers the whole slow drama of the moon's departure across the ages. The 68th fact reveals that because the tidal bulge is dragged ahead of the moon, the extra mass of that heaped water pulls gently forward upon her as she orbits. It is a soft and ceaseless tug, forever urging the moon a little faster along her path. And a faster-moving moon, by the laws of orbital motion, must slowly climb into a wider and more distant orbit. In this quiet way, the tides themselves are patiently pushing the moon away from us. The bulge that the moon herself raises upon the earth thus turns and tugs upon her in return. A gentle forward pull that never rests, lifting our companion outward by a fingernail's width with each passing year. The 69th fact tells us that this same tidal interaction acts as a gentle brake upon the spinning earth. Just as the offset bulge pulls the moon forward, the moon pulls back upon that bulge, and through it upon the whole turning earth, very slowly slowing our world's rotation. Energy is quietly drained from the earth's spin by the endless friction of the moving tides, and that lost spin is patiently traded away, lengthening our days by a tiny amount with each passing age. So the moon is not only lifted outward but also gently reaches back to slow the very world that lifts her. The two changes forever bound together, the widening orbit and the lengthening day. The 70th fact reveals that tides are not unique to the earth, but are raised throughout the heavens wherever worlds pull upon one another. On the moon Io, circling mighty Jupiter, the relentless flexing of tides heats the little world from within until it seethes with volcanoes, the most volcanically active body in all the solar system. Tides can warm a world, slow its spin, or lock its face, gentle forces of gravity working their patient will across the dark. What we see so quietly at work between the earth and moon plays out in countless forms across the universe, sometimes gently, as with our own tides, and sometimes fiercely, as in the molten, straining, endlessly erupting surface of distant Io. The 71st fact tells us that the tides have been slowing the Earth's rotation steadily for billions of years, ever since the oceans first gathered upon our young world. Every day, the friction of the moving waters bleeds away a little of our planet's spin. It is an almost imperceptibly gradual thing, far too slow to notice in a single lifetime, and yet across the long reaches of geologic time it has reshaped the very length of the day itself. The earth of the deep past spun far more swiftly than it does today. Its days brief and hurried, and only the patient, unceasing drag of the tides, working across unimaginable ages, has stretched those short days into the 24 hours we now know. The 72nd fact reveals that the height of the tides varies greatly from place to place around the world, shaped by the form of the coasts and the depth of the seas. In certain narrowing bays, the incoming water is funneled and piled ever higher, until the difference between low tide and high tide grows truly enormous. In one great northern bay, the tide can rise and fall by more than 16 meters, a towering wall of water breathing in and out twice each day. The open ocean tides are gentle, only a meter or so, but where a coastline gathers and channels the water into an ever-narrowing space, the sea can heap up to astonishing heights, all of it stirred by the faithful pull of the distant moon. The 73rd fact tells us that the rhythm of the tides has shaped the living world along every seashore. In the narrow zone between the high and low water marks live countless creatures perfectly attuned to the coming and going of the sea, exposed to the open air for part of each day and then bathed once more in the returning waters. The moon's gentle pull thus reaches even into the delicate web of life clinging to the edges of the land. Whole communities of shells and crabs and drifting weeds have arranged their very lives around the twice-daily breathing of the tide, timing their feeding and their hiding to a rhythm set, in truth, by a gray world hanging silently overhead. The 74th fact reveals that even the air of our world feels the pull of the sun and the moon, rising and falling in faint atmospheric tides. Though far subtler than the tides of the sea, the whole envelope of the atmosphere swells and settles gently in response to those distant bodies. The moon's quiet influence thus touches not only the oceans and the solid rock, but the very air we breathe, drawing it too into the slow celestial rhythm. These atmospheric tides are so gentle that we never feel them, hidden beneath the far greater comings and goings of ordinary weather, and yet they are truly there, the whole sky breathing softly in time with the passing of the moon and sun overhead. The 75th fact tells us that the strength of a tidal pull falls away very steeply with distance, far more steeply than ordinary gravity does. This is why the near moon outpulls the far great sun in raising our tides, and why, as the moon slowly drifts away from us across the ages, the tides she raises will very gradually grow gentler and smaller. The seas of the distant future will breathe a little more softly than the seas we know tonight. Every fingernail's width the moon retreats weakens her tidal grip by a small measure, so that far ahead in time, the tides that stir our oceans will be milder things, and the great engine of the moon's own departure will slowly, gently wind itself down. The 76th fact reveals that the same tidal forces that stir the Earth's oceans long ago locked the moon's own spin, back in her distant youth. The Earth raised a bulge upon the young and yielding moon, and the drag of it braked her rotation until she turned to face us always, just as we saw before. The tides work both ways across the gulf between the worlds, each body raising bulges upon the other, each slowly reshaping the other's motion through the patient centuries. And so the tides are truly a conversation between two worlds, the Earth having already stilled the moon's spin long ago, while the moon in turn is only now, far more slowly, still working to still our own. The 77th fact tells us that the total spinning and orbiting motion of the Earth and moon together, what astronomers call the angular momentum of the system, can never simply vanish, but must always be conserved. And so, as the tides slow the Earth's spin and steal away some of its rotational motion, that motion is not lost but quietly handed over to the moon's orbit. What the Earth gives up in spinning, the moon receives in her widening path. It is one of the deep and beautiful laws of nature, that such motion can only be traded and never destroyed, and it is this iron rule of bookkeeping that lies beneath the whole slow story of our companion's gentle leaving. The 78th fact reveals that this quiet exchange is the very heart of why the moon is leaving us. The Earth's spin is slowing, its lost angular momentum flowing outward across the gulf to the moon, and the moon, gaining that motion, climbs into an ever wider orbit and drifts steadily farther away. It is a single unbroken transaction written into the laws of physics, a slow and gentle trade of spin for distance, playing out across the long ages between our two worlds. There is no drama in it and no sorrow, only the patient balancing of an eternal ledger, the Earth spending its spin, the moon receiving her distance, the two forever bound in this quiet and lawful exchange. The 79th fact tells us that the small offset of the tidal bulge ahead of the moon, the very engine of her recession, is only a matter of a few degrees. Yet across billions of years its patient effect is immense. A gentle, endless tug, imperceptible in any single moment, has already carried the moon far outward from where she began and will carry her farther still. Great cosmic changes are often built from the tiniest and quietest of forces. It is a lesson worth resting in, that so small a thing as a bulge nudged a few degrees out of place can, given only time enough, move a whole world across 100,000 kilometers and reshape the length of every day upon the Earth. The 80th fact reveals that all of these tidal effects, the two ocean bulges, the slowing of the Earth, the widening of the moon's orbit, are bound together into one elegant and unified story. It is a story of two worlds forever pulling upon one another, trading motion back and forth, slowly and gently reshaping their shared dance across the ages. And at the center of it all lies the simple, remarkable truth that the moon, our faithful companion, is quietly moving away. Everything else, the tides, the slowing days, the fading eclipses yet to come, flows outward from this single gentle fact, like ripples spreading softly from one quiet stone dropped long ago into the still waters of time. The 81st fact is the very heart of our story tonight, the quiet truth around which all the rest is gently gathered. The moon is slowly moving away from the Earth, drifting outward at a rate of about 3.8 centimeters each and every year. It is a distance no wider than the length of a finger, added silently to the great gulf between us with each passing year, and yet it never ceases, patient and relentless across the ages. So gentle is this drift that no eye could ever mark it, and yet so faithful that across the whole long life of the Earth it has carried the moon from a close and looming giant to the small serene companion we know, and carries her outward still, tonight, even as you rest. The 82nd fact reveals that we know this recession with astonishing precision, measured not by guesswork but by beams of laser light sent from the Earth to the moon and back again. Scientists fire brief pulses of light at reflectors resting upon the lunar surface, then time the faint returning glimmer to a tiny fraction of a second. From that delicate measurement, repeated across the years, the slow widening of the moon's orbit is read out to the width of a fingernail. It is a marvel of patience and precision, that we can measure so vast a distance so finely, timing light across 750,000 kilometers of round-trip dark to learn that our companion has slipped a few soft centimeters farther away. The 83rd fact tells us that the reflectors making this measurement possible were carried to the moon and set gently upon her surface by the Apollo astronauts. Between the years 1969 and 1972, small panels studded with mirrored corners, designed to bounce any light that strikes them straight back toward its source. Decades later, they still faithfully return our laser beams, a quiet gift from the age of the moon landings, still patiently serving science today. Long after the astronauts came home and the great rockets fell silent, those little mirrors have gone on doing their quiet work, resting undisturbed in the lunar dust, catching our light and sending it home, night after night, year after year. The 84th fact reveals that the Apollo reflectors are not the only ones resting upon the moon. for 2 more were carried there by robotic Soviet rovers in that same era. These little wheeled machines trundled across the gray dust and left behind their own mirrored panels. And so, scattered across the near side of the moon, several silent reflectors now catch the laser light of the Earth, together mapping the slow and steady retreat of our companion world. It is a gentle irony of history that in an age of great rivalry between nations, both sides left upon the moon these quiet instruments of science, and that today they serve together, without distinction, the single shared human task of understanding our companions leaving. The 85th fact tells us that the laser light sent to the moon spreads out on its journey until, by the time it reaches the surface, the beam has widened to several kilometers across. Only a tiny scattering of its countless photons strike a reflector, and only a faint handful ever find their way back to the waiting telescope on Earth. Yet from that mere whisper of returning light, timed with exquisite care, we measure the Earth-Moon distance to within a few millimeters. It is a humbling thought, that of the immense flood of light we send moonward, we catch back only a trickle, a few lonely photons out of many trillions, and that from so faint a return we read the slow secrets of the moon's retreat. The 86th fact reveals that the outward drift of the moon is driven by the quiet transfer of angular momentum from the Earth's spin to the moon's orbit. The slowing rotation of our world hands its motion outward across the gulf, and the moon, receiving it, is gently boosted into a wider path. This is why she recedes, not from any push or any parting, but from the patient bookkeeping of a great and unbreakable law of physics. There is a deep calm in understanding this, that the moon's leaving is no accident and no misfortune, but simply the working out of the same law that governs a spinning skater drawing in her arms, played slowly across 100 million years between 2 worlds bound in the dark. The 87th fact tells us that although the tides steal energy from the Earth-Moon system, bleeding it away as heat in the churning of the seas, the total angular momentum of the 2 worlds together is perfectly preserved. Energy may be lost to warmth and friction, but that spinning, orbiting motion is only ever passed along, never destroyed. And so the moon must climb outward to carry the motion that the slowing Earth lets go, the great ledger always balancing across the ages. It is worth pausing gently on this distinction, that the tides waste energy as heat but faithfully conserve angular momentum, and it is this second, unbreakable rule that compels the moon, whether she would or no, to drift forever outward as the Earth slows. The 88th fact reveals that as the moon receives this motion and climbs into a wider orbit, she does not actually speed up along her path, but slows. It is one of the gentle paradoxes of orbital motion that a body lifted into a higher, wider orbit moves more slowly and takes longer to complete its journey around. So the receding moon travels her ever larger circle a little more languidly with each passing age, and her month very slowly lengthens. It runs against our first intuition, that gaining energy should mean going faster, and yet in the strange arithmetic of orbits the opposite holds true, so that the moon, lifted gently outward, glides ever more slowly and patiently around the Earth below. The 89th fact tells us that as the moon drifts farther from the Earth, the tides she raises upon us grow gradually weaker, and so the rate of her recession itself very slowly eases. It is a self-limiting process, gentle and self-correcting. The farther she goes, the softer her tidal grip becomes, and the more slowly she then retreats. The great departure is not a headlong flight but an ever-gentling drift, easing across the deep reaches of time. Like so many things in nature, the moon's leaving carries within it the seed of its own slowing, so that she will never rush away nor break free, but only drift outward more and more softly, forever approaching a distant end she can never quite reach. The 90th fact reveals that the moon's rate of retreat has not been perfectly constant across all of Earth's history, for it depends upon how freely the tides can move through the oceans, the ever-shifting arrangement of the continents, the opening and closing of the seas across geologic ages, has sped and slowed the tidal drag over time. Today's rate of about 3.8 centimeters a year may, in fact, be somewhat swifter than the long-term average across the eons. The tides move differently through a world of scattered continents than through a world of a single great ocean, so that the moon's pace of leaving has quickened and slackened again and again, keeping time with the slow drifting of the very lands beneath the seas. The 91st fact tells us that the present arrangement of the Earth's oceans and continents happens to be especially good at dissipating tidal energy. The great basins and shallow seas of our era resonate with the tides in a way that strengthens the drag upon the moon. In other epochs, with the continents gathered differently, the tides sloshed less fiercely, and the moon crept outward more slowly. Her retreat has quickened and slackened with the drifting of the lands. So even the seemingly steady rate of the moon's leaving is in truth a passing thing, tied to the shape of our present world. And one day, as the continents drift on and rearrange, our companion's pace of departure will quietly change once more. The 92nd fact reveals that in the moon's distant youth she orbited the Earth far, far closer than she does now, only a small fraction of her present distance away. In that ancient time she loomed vastly larger in the sky, and the tides she raised were mightier by far, sweeping across a young and lifeless world in great and frequent surges. Ever since, across for billion years and more, she has been steadily climbing outward to the serene and distant orbit she holds tonight. The moon that hung over the newborn Earth would be scarcely recognizable to us. A huge and looming face filling the heavens, stirring tremendous tides, and only the slow, patient work of the ages has carried her out to the gentle companion we know. The 93rd fact tells us that the moon recedes from us at about the same gentle pace that your fingernails grow. A few centimeters across a year, a distance so small against the vastness of her orbit that no human eye could ever perceive it. And yet this quiet, fingernail-slow drift, sustained without pause across the deep ages, is enough to have utterly transformed the Earth-Moon system since the dawn of worlds, and will transform it still. It is a lovely and homely comparison to rest in, that the moon slips away no faster than the small quiet growing of your own fingernails. So slow it seems like nothing at all, and yet across a billion years amounting to a change beyond all reckoning. The 94th fact reveals that across a single long human lifetime, the moon drifts outward by only about 3 meters, no farther than the width of a small room. A person born beneath the moon and living to a great old age would see her recede by a distance they could cross in 2 or 3 gentle steps. So slow is her leaving that to us she seems utterly fixed, a changeless companion, though the patient measurements tell another story. In all the years of a whole human life, from the first cradle to the last quiet rest, the moon slips away by no more than a few paces, which is why every generation has known her as constant, steadfast, and seemingly eternal in the night. The 95th fact tells us that the slow recession of the moon has been quietly confirmed by more than laser light alone. The ancient records of eclipses observed by long-vanished civilizations, compared against where the moon and sun should have stood, reveal the gradual slowing of the Earth and the drifting of the moon written across thousands of years of human history. Even the sky watchers of the ancient world unknowingly recorded the moon's gentle departure. When we compare where a total eclipse was truly seen long ago against where our calculations say the shadow should have fallen, the difference speaks of a slowing Earth and a leaving moon, a message left for us all unwitting by the patient astronomers of antiquity. The 96th fact reveals that the energy powering the moon's slow climb outward is drawn ultimately from the spinning of the Earth itself. Our world is a vast reservoir of rotational motion, and the tides tap gently into it, drawing off a little each day to lift the moon and to warm the churning seas. The Earth is, in a sense, spending its own spin to send the moon slowly away, a patient and unhurried giving out across the ages. There is something almost tender in this image, of the earth quietly pouring out its own turning, little by little, to lift its companion gently outward, as though the great world were slowly, across unimaginable time, letting the moon go. The 97th fact tells us that the very same process that lifts the moon away from us is also, inseparably, lengthening the day here on Earth. The two are bound together as one, the slowing spin and the widening orbit, a single coupled dance. As the moon drifts outward by a fingernail's width each year, our days grow imperceptibly longer. The two changes forever locked together in the quiet arithmetic of the tides. You cannot have one without the other. Every centimeter the moon gains in distance is paid for by a fraction of a second added to the length of our day, so that the leaving of the moon and the stretching of our days are truly two names for a single slow event. The 98th fact reveals that the recession of the moon is not some rare or unusual event, but the ordinary fate of tidally interacting worlds throughout the universe. Wherever a rapidly spinning planet holds a moon whose orbit lags behind its own swift rotation, that moon will be gently urged outward across time. Our own moon's slow departure is but one quiet example of a process unfolding on countless worlds among the distant stars. Across the whole galaxy, moons are drifting outward from their planets or spiraling inward toward them, all according to the same simple tidal rules. And our own companion's leaving is merely the nearest and dearest instance of a cosmic story told a billion times over. The 99th fact tells us that the moon rests on average some 384,000 kilometers from us today, but she began her life a great deal nearer, and will end it a great deal farther still. We happen to be living in one particular moment of a vast and slow migration, a single frame of a journey stretching across billions of years. It is a rare privilege simply to be present, to look up, and to see our companion at just this one gentle stage of her long outward road. Neither the huge near moon of the ancient past nor the small far moon of the distant future, but the familiar, faithful moon of our own brief and fortunate age. The 100th fact reveals that the whole grand story of the moon's recession is written into the simplest of everyday things. The rise and fall of the tide upon a quiet shore, the gentle lengthening of the day, the changeless seeming face of the moon overhead. Beneath these familiar and quiet appearances runs a deep and patient physics, forever nudging our companion away. And with this thought we turn now to what her slow leaving has meant, and will mean, for the very length of our days, the stretching of time itself upon the turning earth. For the moon's departure and the pace of our own lives are woven, it turns out, of the very same thread. The 101st fact is that as the moon draws slowly away, the day here on Earth grows very gradually longer, stretching by roughly 1.5 to 2 milliseconds with each passing century. A change so tiny it would take 100 human lifetimes to add up to the blink of an eye. Yet across the deep reaches of geologic time, these vanishing fractions of a second gather together into whole minutes and hours, reshaping the very rhythm of day and night. The day you live within is not quite the length of the day your distant ancestors knew, nor the length that your distant descendants will know, for the turning of the world is forever, imperceptibly winding gently down. The 102nd fact reveals that we can measure this gradual slowing with extraordinary care, using atomic clocks that tick with almost perfect and unwavering steadiness. By comparing the flawless beat of these clocks against the slightly irregular turning of the Earth, scientists track how our world's rotation drifts and slows. Now and then a single leap second must even be added to our calendars to keep our clocks in step with the gently slowing planet beneath them. For most of history the Earth itself was our finest clock, but now we have built clocks steadier still, and by their perfect beat we have at last caught the old clock of the spinning world quietly running down. The 103rd fact tells us that the slowing of the Earth is also recorded in the ancient observations of eclipses handed down across the centuries. When scholars calculate where a total eclipse should have fallen thousands of years ago, and compare it against where old records say it was truly seen, the difference reveals how much the Earth has slowed since. The sky watchers of Babylon and China unknowingly left us a precious measure of the lengthening day. A great eclipse recorded as darkening one ancient city would, had the Earth never slowed, have fallen upon another far away, and from that gentle discrepancy, gathered across millennia, we read the patient stretching of our days. The 104th fact reveals that some of the most beautiful evidence of the lengthening day lies hidden within the fossils of ancient corals. Certain corals lay down fine growth bands, one delicate line for each day and a broader ring for each year, and by carefully counting the daily bands within a single yearly ring, scientists have found that hundreds of millions of years ago there were far more days packed into every year than there are now. These humble stony creatures kept, all unknowing, a faithful daily diary in their skeletons, and in reading it we learn that the ancient Earth spun faster, its days more numerous and more brief than any day we have ever lived. The 105th fact tells us that from these fossil corals and other ancient records, we learn that in the age of the early fishes, some 400 million years ago, a single year held about 400 days. The Earth spun faster then, and each day was noticeably shorter than ours, lasting only about 22 hours. The days of the deep past were brisker, briefer things, hurrying by beneath a nearer and larger moon. A creature living in those ancient seas would have known a day nearly 2 hours shorter than yours, a sun that rose and set more quickly, and a year crowded with a dozen extra sunrises, all because the Earth had not yet been slowed by the long, patient work of the tides. The 106th fact reveals that the record of the slowing Earth is written even in the layered rock of ancient tidal flats, in certain fine bands of sediment laid down by long-vanished tides. Geologists can read the rhythm of days and months and seasons from hundreds of millions of years ago. These patient stones are a kind of fossil calendar, quietly preserving the pace of the Earth and Moon across almost unimaginable spans of time. Each thin layer marks a tide, and the way the layers thicken and thin marks the swelling and easing of the tides across the month, so that in reading these ancient rhythms in the stone we can count the days and months of a world that vanished long before any living memory. The 107th fact tells us that if we look back far enough, to the Earth's youngest days, the evidence suggests our world once spun far faster still, with a single day lasting perhaps only some 6 to 10 hours. In that ancient age the sun and moon would have raced across the sky, and the newborn moon, hanging close and huge, would have swept overhead again and again in the brief, hurrying days of the early Earth. It is almost dizzying to imagine a young world whirling several times faster than today, its days a mere handful of hours, its enormous nearby moon rising and setting in swift succession, all before the tides had begun their long, slow work of gentling the Earth's spin. The 108th fact reveals that the lengthening of the day is not perfectly smooth and steady, for the Earth's spin also flickers with smaller, shorter changes. The slow rebound of the land where great ice sheets once pressed down, the sloshing of the molten core deep within, the shifting of winds and oceans across the surface, all nudge our rotation faintly faster or slower from year to year. But beneath all this quiet, flickering runs the steady tidal slowing, patient and unceasing. So the Earth's spin is not a perfect metronome but a living, breathing thing, quickening and slowing by tiny amounts as the seasons and the ages turn, yet always, beneath the flicker, drifting gently toward a longer day. The 109th fact tells us that because of the Earth's very gradual slowing, timekeepers must occasionally insert a leap second into our official clocks. A single extra second, quietly added to bring atomic time back into step with the slightly lagging turning of the world. It is a small and gentle act of correction, a soft acknowledgement that the planet beneath our feet is not a perfect clock, but a slowing one, gently losing its old swiftness across the ages. Now and then, at the close of a chosen day, The world's clocks pause for 1 extra second to let the slowing Earth catch up, a quiet ceremony marking the imperceptible stretching of our days. The 110th fact reveals that the same tidal process links the length of our day directly to the distance of the moon. A longer day and a farther moon are two faces of a single change, forever bound together across all the ages. Every fingernail's width the moon drifts outward is paid for by a fraction of a second added to the day. To watch the moon recede is, in truth, to watch our own days slowly and gently grow. They are not two separate stories but one, the great coupled dance of the earth and moon, so that whenever you gaze up and think of the moon drifting away, you may also think of the day itself quietly lengthening, the two changes flowing together from a single gentle cause. The 111th fact tells us that across the long future, if the process were to continue unopposed, the day would grow ever longer, stretching from 24 hours toward 25 and beyond. Future beings, should any dwell upon the earth, would know days measurably longer than ours, lit by a moon smaller and more distant in their sky. The gentle rhythm of day and night is not fixed, but forever, imperceptibly, lengthening. What seems to us the most dependable of all things, the steady turning of one day into the next, is really a slow and drifting rhythm, and the inhabitants of the far future would find our present day a brief and hurried thing by comparison. The 112th fact reveals that this slow stretching of the day is far too gradual for any person ever to feel. Across a whole human life, the day lengthens by only a tiny fraction of a second, utterly beyond our senses to perceive. And yet it is real and measurable and unceasing, a quiet reminder that even the most dependable things, the length of a day, the turning of the world, are gently changing beneath the surface of our brief and hurried lives. There is a strange comfort in it, that the ground of our days is so nearly steady, changing so slowly that no one has ever felt it shift, and yet also a soft wonder that nothing, not even time itself, is truly and perfectly still. The 113th fact tells us that as the Earth's day lengthens, the moon's month is also very slowly growing. For as she drifts outward into her ever wider orbit, she takes a little longer to complete each circle around us. Both of the great clocks of the Earth-Moon system, the day and the month, are stretching out together across the ages, the two of them slowly, gently approaching one another across the vast reaches of deep time. It is as though the two hands of a great cosmic clock, the swift hand of the day and the slow hand of the month, were creeping ever so gradually toward the same pace, drawing together across billions of years toward a distant meeting they may never quite reach. The 114th fact reveals that in principle, given enough time, the lengthening day and the lengthening month would eventually grow to be exactly the same. The Earth would come to spin exactly once for every orbit of the moon, and the two would fall into a full mutual lock, each forever showing the other but a single face, just as Pluto and Charon do today. It is the natural far-off resting place toward which the whole slow dance is quietly tending. In that distant state, the moon would hang forever above one single spot on the Earth, never rising and never setting, and half the world would never see her at all, the two bodies gazing eternally into one another's faces. The 115th fact tells us that were the Earth and Moon ever to reach that final mutual lock, the day and the month would both stretch to something on the order of 1,000 or more hours long. A single turn of the Earth would take more than 40 of our present days, and the moon would hang motionless over one unchanging spot on the planet. It is a strange and serene vision of a distant, slowed-down world, where a single day and night would stretch across weeks, and the sun would crawl across the sky with almost unbearable slowness, and the faithful moon would stand fixed and silent above one patient horizon forever. The 116th fact reveals a gentle and important truth, however, about that far-off mutual lock. It would take so vast a span of time to reach tens of billions of years that the sun itself is destined to die long before it could ever come to pass. And so this ultimate resting state remains only a beautiful theoretical possibility, a place the Earth and Moon are quietly heading toward but will almost certainly never arrive. The universe simply will not grant them the time. The sun's own life will end, and the whole character of the Earth and Moon will change utterly, long before the slow tides could ever finish their patient work of locking the two worlds fully together. The 117th fact tells us that the spinning Earth holds an enormous reserve of rotational energy, which is why its slowing takes so unimaginably long. Our whole vast world, turning once a day, is a colossal flywheel of stone and metal and sea, and the gentle tides can draw upon it only very slowly. To slow so great a spin to a near standstill would demand far more time than the sun has left to shine. It is the sheer mass and momentum of the whole turning Earth that makes the process so glacial, so that even the tireless tides, working without rest for billions of years, can stretch our day by only a couple of milliseconds each century. The 118th fact reveals that the coupling of the day and the month, the spin of the Earth and the orbit of the Moon, is one of the most elegant relationships in all of celestial mechanics. Two great clocks, bound together by the tides, forever adjusting one another, trading motion back and forth. To understand why the Moon is leaving is to understand why our days grow long. For they are truly one and the same story, told from two different points of view. Astronomers find a quiet beauty in this deep connection, that the distance of the Moon and the length of the day are locked together so perfectly that from one we can always, in principle, read the other. The 119th fact tells us that for almost all of human history, the turning of the Earth itself was our very definition of time. The day was simply one rotation of the world, and the second was but a tiny fraction of that turning. Only in recent decades, with the arrival of the atomic clock, have we found a steadier beat, and discovered thereby that the old clock of the spinning Earth was very gently running down. It is a profound and humbling shift, that for thousands of years we measured all our hours by a planet we now know to be slowly slowing, and only lately have we built something steadier against which to catch the Earth in its gentle, imperceptible loss of swiftness. The 120th fact reveals that all of this, the lengthening day, the leap seconds, the fossil corals, the ancient eclipses, points back to the same quiet cause hanging overhead: the slow tidal conversation between the Earth and the Moon. Our companion's gentle departure and the stretching of our days are bound together as one. And that same slow drifting away, as we shall now gently see, is quietly bringing an end to one of the most breathtaking sights the sky has ever offered us, a spectacle that we, in our own fortunate age, are still just able to witness in all its fleeting glory. The 121st fact is that in this present age of the world, the Moon happens to fit almost exactly over the face of the Sun, giving us the breathtaking spectacle of a total solar eclipse. When the Moon passes precisely between the Earth and the Sun, she can cover the blinding disk so perfectly that day turns briefly to a deep and eerie twilight, and the Sun's faint outer glow blooms softly into view around her dark edge. It is among the most moving sights the sky can offer, and it is possible only because, in this one passing epoch of cosmic history, the near small Moon and the far great Sun appear to us at very nearly the very same size. The 122nd fact reveals that this perfect fit is one of the most remarkable coincidences in all the heavens. The Sun is about 400 times wider than the Moon, and yet it also happens to lie almost exactly 400 times farther away from us. And so, purely by chance, the two appear in our sky at very nearly the same size, allowing the small near Moon to blot out the vast distant Sun with an almost uncanny precision. There is no deep law that requires this. It is simply a happy accident of where we stand in space and time, a coincidence so exact that many have marveled at it, and it belongs to our own brief age alone. The 123rd fact tells us that both the Sun and the Moon span roughly half a degree across our sky, about the width of a small pea held out at arm's length. It is this near-perfect match in apparent size that makes a total eclipse possible at all. Were the moon a little larger or a little nearer, she would smother the sun's delicate outer glow along with its face. A little smaller or farther, and she could never quite cover it. It is only because their apparent sizes agree so closely that the moon can hide the bright disk while leaving the faint corona free to shine. A balance so fine it seems almost deliberate, though it is only the gift of chance. The 124th fact reveals that a total solar eclipse unveils a sight hidden at every other moment: the sun's ghostly outer atmosphere. The corona, this pale, shimmering crown of light streaming millions of kilometers out into space, is normally lost entirely in the overwhelming glare of the sun's blinding face. Only when the moon slides perfectly across the disk does the corona emerge, a soft silver halo about the darkened sun, one of nature's most sublime spectacles. For a few short minutes the day grows dark, the brightest stars appear, and around the black disk of the moon the sun's faint crown blooms into view, a sight that has stilled and awed every soul fortunate enough to stand beneath it. The 125th fact tells us that because the moon's orbit is a gentle ellipse, she is not always at just the right distance to cover the sun completely. When an eclipse falls while the moon is near her farthest point from us, she appears a touch too small, and a brilliant ring of unblotted sunlight remains around her dark edge. This is the annular eclipse, a fiery ring of fire in the sky, beautiful in its own way, but never quite total, for the sun's glare is never fully hidden. In such an eclipse the corona stays lost in the light, and the day does not darken into true twilight, only dims a little around a dazzling ring that hangs suspended in the sky. The 126th fact reveals the quiet consequence of the moon's slow retreat for these great spectacles. As she drifts farther from us across the ages, her apparent size in our sky grows steadily smaller. Little by little, eclipse by distant eclipse, she becomes less and less able to cover the whole face of the sun. The perfect fit we enjoy today is a passing gift, slowly slipping away with each fingernail's width of her gentle departure. The very same recession that lengthens our days and weakens our tides is also, silently, shrinking the moon in our sky, carrying her by tiny degrees toward the day when she can no longer quite blot out the sun. The 127th fact tells us that a time will come, far in the future, when the moon has receded so far that she can no longer fully cover the sun at all. From that age onward, every solar eclipse will be an annular one, a mere ring of fire, and the deep twilight of totality, the blooming of the ghostly corona, will have vanished from the Earth's sky forever. The era of total eclipses is a chapter with a distant but certain closing page. After that far-off day, no living eye upon the earth will ever again see the sky go dark at midday and the sun's silver crown appear, for the moon will simply have drifted too far away to hide the sun's blazing face. The 128th fact reveals that astronomers estimate the last total solar eclipse will occur roughly 600 million years from now. After that unimaginably distant day, no living eye upon the earth will ever again witness the moon perfectly blotting out the sun. It is a farewell set so far ahead of us that it lies utterly beyond all human reckoning, and yet it is written already into the slow and certain arithmetic of the moon's retreat. 600 million years is longer than complex life has yet existed upon the land, an ocean of time so vast that it need cast no shadow at all upon our own night, and yet the ending it promises is as sure as the drifting of the moon. The 129th fact tells us that the moon takes part in another kind of eclipse as well, when it is she who passes into shadow rather than casting one. In a lunar eclipse, the Earth slips directly between the sun and the moon, casting its own great shadow across her face. The moon does not vanish, but glows a deep and haunting coppery red, lit by the sunlight bent and reddened as it passes through the ring of the Earth's own atmosphere. Unlike a solar eclipse, which is seen only along a narrow track, a lunar eclipse can be watched by everyone on the whole night side of the Earth at once, the reddened moon hanging quietly for all to see. The 130th fact reveals that the coppery red of a totally eclipsed moon is, in a poetic sense, the combined light of every sunrise and sunset on Earth at once. All the reddened light skimming through our atmosphere around the whole rim of the world is bent gently inward to fall softly upon the shadowed moon. To watch a lunar eclipse is to see our companion bathed in the gathered glow of all the Earth's twilights together. If you could stand upon the moon during such an eclipse, you would see the Earth as a dark disk ringed by a thin band of glowing fire, the light of every dawn and dusk on the planet gathered into one soft crimson ring around our world. The 131st fact tells us that eclipses do not fall at random, but follow a stately rhythm known since ancient times, the Saros cycle of about 18 years and 11 days. After each such span, the Sun, Earth, and Moon return to very nearly the same alignment, and a similar eclipse repeats itself. The astronomers of antiquity, patiently watching the sky across generations, discovered this hidden pattern and learned thereby to foretell the darkening of the sun. It was a triumph of quiet observation, gathered over many lifetimes, that people could predict so awesome an event, and it lifted the eclipse from a thing of terror into a thing that could be foreseen, understood, and calmly awaited. The 132nd fact reveals that during a total solar eclipse, the moon's dark shadow races across the face of the Earth in a narrow band called the path of totality. Only those standing within that slender track, often no more than 100 or 200 kilometers wide, witness the full glory of totality. Beyond it, a much wider region sees only a partial eclipse, the sun reduced to a bright and gently bitten crescent. The shadow sweeps across the world at astonishing speed, thousands of kilometers in an hour, so that totality at any one spot lasts only a few precious minutes at most, a brief and rushing darkness that travelers will cross whole oceans to stand within. The 133rd fact tells us that in the final moments before totality, as the last sliver of sunlight streams through the rugged valleys along the moon's edge, it breaks into a string of brilliant points called Bailey's beads, and when a single last bead blazes beside the emerging corona, it forms the dazzling diamond ring, one of the most beloved and fleeting sights an eclipse can offer, gone again in a heartbeat as the darkness sweeps fully in. These beads of light are shining through the very valleys and mountains along the moon's rugged rim, so that in that instant the unseen landscape of the moon's edge is written for a moment across the sky, before the last point of sunlight winks out and totality begins. The 134th fact reveals that eclipses have been far more than beautiful spectacles, for they have also been powerful moments of scientific discovery. During a famous total eclipse in the early 20th century, astronomers measured the faint bending of starlight passing close by the darkened sun, and found it curved just as a great new theory of gravity had predicted. The moon, by hiding the sun, helped to confirm our deepest understanding of space and time. Only during the brief dark of totality could those faint stars beside the sun be seen and their positions measured, so that the moon herself, stepping quietly in front of the sun, became an instrument in one of the greatest discoveries in all of science. The 135th fact tells us that we are living within a special and privileged window of cosmic history, the age in which total solar eclipses are possible at all. For most of the deep past, the moon was too near and loomed too large, so that she would have swallowed the whole corona, and across the deep future she will drift too far and grow too small to cover the sun. Only now, in this passing epoch, do her size and the sun's align so perfectly. It is a gift of timing as much as of chance that we, of all the generations of living things, happen to dwell in the one age when the moon fits the sun so exactly, and can witness the full and fleeting glory of totality. The 136th fact reveals that no other planet in our solar system enjoys quite this same perfect coincidence of eclipses. Other worlds have moons, and those moons cast shadows and cause eclipses of their own, but none matches the apparent size of the sun so exactly as ours does. The precise and beautiful fit that gives the Earth its total eclipses appears to be, so far as we know, a thing entirely our own, unique to this one world and this one fleeting age. From other planets one might see a moon partly cross the sun, or wholly swallow it and much more besides, but nowhere else is the match so fine that the dark disk just covers the bright face and leaves the silver corona free to shine. The 137th fact tells us that eclipses once filled our ancestors with awe and often with dread, for the sudden darkening of the sun seemed a portent of great and terrible things. Across the ancient world, people beat drums, offered prayers, and told stories of a great dragon or beast devouring the sun in the sky. Only slowly, as the hidden rhythm of the eclipses was uncovered, did fear give way to wonder and to the calm delight of understanding. What once seemed a sign of doom, a wound in the heavens, became in time a thing to be predicted and cherished, a reminder of how understanding can turn even our deepest terrors gently into awe. The 138th fact reveals that the ancient Greeks used the geometry of eclipses to make some of the first careful measurements of the heavens. By watching the curved shadow of the Earth creep across the moon during a lunar eclipse, thinkers of antiquity reasoned about the round shape of the Earth and the distance and size of the moon. The eclipses were among humanity's earliest windows onto the true scale of the cosmos. From the simple sight of our planet's shadow, always curved, always round, falling upon the moon, careful minds long ago deduced that the Earth itself was a sphere, and began to measure the great distances of the sky with nothing but geometry and patient thought. The 139th fact tells us that the beings who dwell upon the Earth in the far future, should any remain, will look up at a moon too small to hide the sun, and will know total eclipses only as tales from a vanished age. The corona, the diamond ring, the sudden falling of the midday dark, all will have slipped beyond their reach. We are among the fortunate ones, living while the great spectacle still graces our sky. They may read of totality in the oldest records and wonder at it, and envy us who could still stand in the moon's shadow and watch the sun's crown appear, but they will never see it for themselves, for the moon will have drifted quietly beyond it. The 140th fact reveals that the fleeting era of total eclipses is itself a quiet monument to the moon's slow leaving. Every eclipse we witness is a moment stolen from a closing window, a beauty made possible only by the moon's present distance, and gently doomed in the fullness of time by her patient retreat. To stand in the shadow of the moon is to stand within a passing gift of cosmic timing, gentle and precious and brief. So the next time a total eclipse crosses the world, you may hold it a little more dearly, knowing it is not eternal, but a wonder of our own age alone, made possible by exactly where the drifting moon happens to rest in this one brief moment of deep time. The 141st fact is that the moon does far more for the Earth than raise our tides and grace our eclipses, for she also helps to hold our whole world gently steady as it spins. The Earth's axis is tilted about 23.5 degrees away from upright, and it is this tilt that gives us our seasons. The moon's faithful presence keeps that all-important tilt calm and stable across the long ages. Without her steadying hand, our axis might wander far more freely, and the gentle, dependable turning of the seasons that we take so easily for granted might instead become a wild and unpredictable thing, lurching through great extremes. The 142nd fact reveals that it is precisely because of the Earth's axial tilt that we enjoy the turning of the seasons. As our world journeys around the sun, first one hemisphere and then the other leans toward the light, bringing the long warm days of summer and the short cold days of winter in their slow and dependable turn. Without that gentle lean of the axis, the Earth would know no seasons at all, only an endless uniform sameness. The tilt is the reason the sun climbs high in summer and hangs low in winter, the reason for the long golden days and the short dark ones, the source of the whole gentle rhythm of the seasons that orders the living year. The 143rd fact tells us that the steady pull of the moon acts to keep the Earth's tilt from wandering wildly over time. Her gravity gently damps and steadies the slow wobbling of our axis, holding it within a narrow and gentle range. Like a calm hand resting upon a spinning top, the moon keeps the Earth turning smoothly and dependably, and in so doing she helps to keep our climate mild and our seasons faithful across the long ages. It is one of her quietest and most profound gifts, that by her mere steady presence she smooths the wobble of our world, so that the tilt which gives us our seasons stays gentle and constant rather than swinging into ruinous extremes. The 144th fact reveals that without the steadying presence of a large moon, the Earth's tilt might swing wildly and chaotically over time. Careful calculations suggest that, left to itself, our axis could lurch back and forth across a great range of angles, tipping the poles far toward the sun and back again in wild and unpredictable ways. The moon spares us this chaos, holding our world in a gentle and life-sustaining balance. Such large swings in tilt would bring savage shifts of climate, poles baked by the sun and then plunged into deep cold, and it is our large and faithful companion that holds the Earth's axis steady enough to spare us from so violent and disordered a fate. The 145th fact tells us that we can glimpse what a moonless fate might look like by turning our gaze to Mars. The red planet has only 2 tiny moons, far too small to steady it, and so its axial tilt has swung dramatically over millions of years, tipping its climate through wild extremes of warmth and cold. The Earth, cradled by her great moon, has been spared such violent swings, and has kept a far calmer and steadier course. Mars stands as a quiet warning of what our own world might have been without its companion, a planet whose seasons have lurched through chaos across the ages, its ice caps growing and vanishing as its wandering tilt tipped it wildly toward and away from the sun. The 146th fact reveals that this quiet stabilizing of our tilt may have been one of the gentle gifts that allowed complex life to flourish upon the Earth. A steady axis means a steady climate, mild and predictable across the long spans in which living things slowly evolve. Some scientists suspect that without our large and faithful moon, the story of life upon this world might have unfolded very differently, or perhaps not at all. Life needs time and stability to grow complex, and the mild, dependable climate the moon helps to preserve may have been one of the quiet conditions that let the living world deepen and flourish across the unhurried ages into all its present richness. The 147th fact tells us that the Earth's axis does still trace a very slow circle in the sky, a gentle wobble called precession that takes about 26,000 years to complete one turn. Like the slow gyration of a spinning top, our axis sweeps out a great cone among the stars, so that the point in the heavens toward which the North Pole aims drifts slowly onward across the millennia. But the moon keeps this wandering calm and regular. This precession is a stately, orderly motion, not a wild one, and it is precisely the moon's steadying pull that keeps it so gentle, turning the great slow cone of the Earth's axis smoothly through its 26,000-year round. The 148th fact reveals that layered upon this slow precession are smaller, gentler noddings of the Earth's axis, called nutation, stirred by the ever-changing pulls of the sun and moon. These are tiny quiverings upon the great slow circle, adding a delicate flutter to the turning of our world. Together they weave the intricate, gentle motion of the Earth's axis through the sky, all of it held safely within bounds by our companion moon. It is a beautifully complex dance, the axis tracing its great slow cone while trembling with these smaller noddings, and yet the whole of it stays orderly and mild, kept gentle by the same faithful moon that steadies everything about our turning world. The 149th fact tells us that because the Earth's axis precesses, the identity of the pole star slowly changes across the ages. Today, our northern axis points near the star Polaris, a faithful guide for travelers and sailors across the seas. But in the deep past it aimed elsewhere, and in the far future it will drift on to point near the bright star Vega, before slowly circling back again over the long 26,000-year turning of the heavens. The North Star we steer by is not eternal in its office. Ages hence, other stars will hold that place, and the sky our distant descendants navigate by will be gently rearranged from the one we know, all through the slow precession of our world's axis. The 150th fact reveals that the tilt of the Earth's axis does still vary, but only a little and only slowly, wandering between about 22 and 24.5 degrees over some 41,000 years. And it is the moon that keeps this variation so gentle and so small. These slow, mild swings, along with subtle changes in the shape of our orbit, help to pace the long rhythm of the ice ages, the great slow breathing of the Earth's climate. Were it not for the moon, this wandering of the tilt would be far greater and far wilder. But under her steadying influence it stays a gentle drift, a soft and orderly pulse that shepherds the coming and going of the great ice sheets across the ages. The 151st fact tells us that these slow cycles in the Earth's tilt and orbit, gently shepherded by the moon and the planets, are known as the Milankovitch cycles. Across tens of thousands of years they subtly alter how the sunlight falls upon our world, ushering the great ice sheets forth and then drawing them back again. The steadiness the moon provides keeps these rhythms mild and slow, sparing the Earth the violent lurches a moonless world might otherwise suffer. It is a delicate and beautiful clockwork, the slow interplay of tilt and orbit setting the pace of ice ages and warm ages across the eons, and the moon stands quietly at the heart of it, keeping the tempo gentle and the climate's great breathing calm. The 152nd fact reveals that the same slow drifting away of the moon that lengthens our days will, across immense spans of time, very gradually weaken her power to steady our tilt. As she recedes into her ever wider orbit, her stabilizing grip upon our axis will slowly loosen. In the deep future, the Earth's tilt may wander somewhat more freely than it does today, though this change lies unimaginably far ahead of our own brief moment. The moon's steadying gift, like her tides and her eclipses, is thus a thing of our present age, strongest now while she is near, and destined to soften across the far ages as she drifts gently outward into the dark. The 153rd fact tells us that for now, and for a very long while yet, the moon remains a faithful anchor for the Earth's gentle spinning. Her steadying presence has helped keep our seasons mild and our climate calm across the long ages in which life arose and flourished upon our world. She is not only a light in our night and a stirrer of our tides, but a quiet guardian of the very stability of the Earth. To think of her this way is to see her freshly, not merely as a lovely lamp in the sky, but as a steadying companion whose faithful pull has helped hold our whole world gently on its even and life-giving course. The 154th fact reveals that the Earth spins like a great top, and like any top it would wobble far more wildly were there nothing to steady it. The moon's gravity provides exactly that steadying, smoothing the wobble into the slow, regular precession we know. It is a beautiful thought that our companion not only circles us but quietly holds us upright, keeping the great top of the Earth turning smoothly and evenly through the dark. A top left alone soon staggers and lurches, but a top gently guided spins on serenely, and the moon is the gentle guiding hand upon the spinning Earth, holding its axis to a calm and orderly round. The 155th fact tells us that the gift of a large stabilizing moon may be a rare and precious thing among the countless worlds of the galaxy. Many rocky planets likely have no such companion, and may tumble and lurch upon their axes through wild extremes of climate. The Earth's steady seasons, her mild and dependable weather across the eons, may owe a quiet and profound debt to the improbable moon born of that ancient collision. If large stabilizing moons are indeed uncommon, then the calm and steady climate that let life flourish here may itself be uncommon, and our own good fortune in possessing so faithful a companion may be part of why our world became a home for living things at all. The 156th fact reveals that the very tilt that gives us our seasons was itself likely set, in large part, by the same great impact that formed the moon. The titanic collision that flung the young moon into being also knocked the Earth's axis askew, tipping it into the gentle lean we have kept ever since. In this way, the moon and the seasons share a single ancient origin, both born together from the same shaping blow. It is a striking thought that the collision which gave us our companion also gave us summer and winter, spring and autumn, so that the turning seasons and the moon in our sky are, in a deep sense, two children of the same violent and creative dawn. The 157th fact tells us that the changing pole star, the slow precession, the mild swings of tilt, all unfold across spans of time so vast that no single human life could ever perceive them. They are the slow music of the Earth's turning, playing out across thousands and tens of thousands of years. And through it all the moon keeps her patient watch, holding the tempo gentle, steadying the great slow dance of our world. We live our brief lives within one small measure of this vast and unhurried music, never hearing its full melody, and yet it plays on around us always, the Earth's axis tracing its slow figures beneath the faithful and steadying gaze of the moon. The 158th fact reveals that the length of our day, the tilt of our axis, and the distance of the moon are all quietly woven together into a single interconnected system. The tides that push the moon away also slow our spin, and the moon that steadily recedes also loosens, ever so slightly, her hold upon our tilt. To speak of any one of these is really to speak of them all, for they are but threads of one great and gentle tapestry. Pull upon any single thread, the drifting moon, the lengthening day, the steadied seasons, and you find it fastened to all the others, the whole a seamless and beautiful weave spun by the patient hand of gravity across the ages. The 159th fact tells us that the Earth's climate has remained mild enough for liquid water and living things across billions of years, and the moon's steadying influence is likely one quiet reason why, amid all the changes our world has weathered, the faithful pull of our companion has helped keep the seasons turning gently and the poles from tipping into ruin. She has been, in a very real sense, a guardian of the living Earth. Through ice ages and warm ages, through the drifting of continents and the rise and fall of countless forms of life, the moon has held our axis steady, and in that quiet constancy she has helped to preserve the conditions in which life could endure and deepen. The 160th fact reveals that in the moon we possess something both beautiful and rare, a companion that lights our nights, stirs our seas, steadies our spinning, and grants us the fleeting gift of eclipses, and all the while she is slowly, gently taking her leave of us. As we drift now toward the deep future, we shall follow her quiet departure to its distant and uncertain end, out across spans of time almost beyond imagining. Let this be a gentle turning of our thoughts, away from the moon's present gifts and toward the vast slow ages still to come, where her story and the story of the earth and the sun all flow together at last into the deep and patient dark. The 161st fact is that the moon's slow retreat will not go on forever at its present pace, but will very gradually ease as the long ages pass. For as the earth's spin slows and its day lengthens, the tidal bulge falls more nearly beneath the moon, and the gentle forward tug that lifts her away grows weaker. The great departure is a decelerating one, softening across billions of years, never truly rushing, always gentling toward its distant end. It is not a flight but the slowest of driftings, forever slackening, so that with each passing eon the moon leaves a little more reluctantly, easing outward more and more softly into the quiet dark. The 162nd fact reveals that as the Earth's rotation slows toward matching the moon's orbit, the offset of the tidal bulge shrinks toward nothing at all, and when at last the bulge would sit squarely beneath the moon, it would no longer tug her forward, and her outward drift would finally cease. This is the theoretical resting point of the whole long dance, the quiet place toward which the tides have been patiently steering the two worlds all along. There, the Earth and moon would turn in perfect step, the bulge lying still and centered, the gentle engine of recession fallen silent at last, the long departure finally and forever at rest. The 163rd fact tells us that to reach that final resting state, the full mutual lock of the Earth and moon would require something on the order of 50 billion years, a span of time more than 3 times the entire present age of the universe itself. It is a destination so impossibly distant that it lies far beyond the lifetime of the sun, a horizon the Earth and moon will very nearly certainly never live to reach. When we say the moon is heading toward a final resting place, we must hold gently in mind that the journey is longer than the world has time for, a destination glimpsed but never to be gained, dissolving into the deeper changes that the far future surely holds. The 164th fact reveals that long before any such mutual lock could ever come to pass, the sun itself will have run its course and begun to die. In roughly 5 billion years, our steady star will exhaust the hydrogen fuel at its heart and swell slowly into a vast red giant, bloating outward far beyond its present size. This transformation will utterly remake the inner solar system, and with it the fate of the Earth and her moon. The gentle, life-giving sun that has warmed our world for billions of years is itself only passing through the long middle of its own story, and its ending will change everything, long before the tides could finish their patient work. The 165th fact tells us that as the sun swells into a red giant, it will grow so enormous that it may reach out and engulf the innermost planets, and perhaps the Earth herself. Our world may be swallowed into the sun's tenuous outer layers, or else scorched to a barren cinder as the seas boil away and the very rocks begin to soften. The gentle blue world we know will not survive that fiery age unchanged. It is a solemn thought, and yet a distant one, so far ahead of us that no fear of it need trouble our rest, only a quiet wonder at the vast arc of time along which even worlds are born and flourish, and at last are remade. The 166th fact reveals that in such a scorched and oceanless future, there would be no seas left for the moon to raise into tides. The great water tides that have driven her retreat for billions of years would vanish utterly with the boiling away of the oceans. The very engine of her leaving would fall silent, and the slow drift outward would change its character entirely, governed thereafter only by the far fainter tides raised in solid rock. So even the moon's long departure is tied to the fate of the sun, for when the oceans are gone the great tidal engine that has lifted her outward for eons will still, and her drifting will slow into something gentler and stranger still. The 167th fact tells us that even without any oceans, the moon and Earth would still raise gentle tides in one another's solid bodies. The rock itself flexes, as we have seen, rising and falling softly, and these bodily tides would continue their quiet work long after the seas were gone. But they are far weaker than the great ocean tides, and so in that distant, waterless age the slow conversation between the two worlds would grow softer and slower still. The tides would not cease entirely, for as long as the two worlds pull upon each other the rock will gently flex, but the loud voice of the seas would be stilled, leaving only the faint whisper of the flexing stone. The 168th fact reveals that the ultimate fate of the moon is bound inseparably to the fate of the Earth, for the two have journeyed together almost since the very dawn of the solar system. Whatever befalls our world in the sun's dying ages, the moon will share in it, whether scorched alongside the earth or set adrift, or slowly drawn along whatever new path the changed sun and planet decree. They will meet the deep future together, as they have met all the ages of the past. Never once, in more than 4 billion years, has the one been without the other, and so it will remain to the end, two companions facing whatever comes side by side, as they always have. The 169th fact tells us that after the sun has swollen and then shed its outer layers into space, it will settle at last into a small, dense, slowly cooling ember called a white dwarf, no larger than the Earth, yet holding much of the sun's mass. This faint stellar cinder will glow ever more dimly across countless further billions of years. Whatever survives of the earth and moon would circle this dying light in a cold and quiet twilight. The brilliant sun of our own age would be reduced to a tiny fading coal, and the worlds that still remained would wheel about it in deepening darkness and cold, faithful still to a star grown old and faint. The 170th fact reveals that should the earth somehow endure the red giant age as a charred and airless rock, she and the moon might continue their slow gravitational dance around the faint white dwarf for ages beyond all counting, two dark and silent worlds, one gray and one scorched, still bound to one another, still drifting through the deepening cold, faithful companions long after the warmth and the light and the seas had all passed quietly away. There is a strange and gentle beauty even in that far vision, of the earth and moon still together in the dark, still turning about each other and about their dying star, keeping their ancient bond unbroken through the long twilight of the world. The 171st fact tells us that across such unimaginable spans of time, the orbit of the moon may evolve in ways difficult to foresee, shaped by the changed mass of the dying sun and the drag of its shed material. The simple, steady recession of today would give way to a far more complex and uncertain future. What we can say with confidence is only that the gentle certainties of our present age slowly dissolve, far out in the deep future, into a soft haze of quiet possibilities. Our tidy understanding of the moon's drifting holds firm for a very long while, but out beyond the death of the sun, even the astronomers can only gesture toward what may come, where certainty gently fades into wonder. The 172nd fact reveals that there is a boundary around every planet, called the Roche limit, within which a moon drawn too close would be torn apart by tidal forces into a ring of rubble. But our moon is drifting outward, away from this danger, not inward toward it. She will never be shattered into rings by approaching too near, for the tides that shape her are carrying her ever farther from us, not closer, across all the foreseeable ages. It is worth resting gently on this reassurance, that our companion faces no sudden or violent breaking, no plunge toward destruction, but only the slow, safe, outward drift, forever moving away from the boundary where a nearer moon might be undone. The 173rd fact tells us that in the whole vast sweep of the future, the moon's departure remains one of the very gentlest of all cosmic changes. No sudden catastrophe, no violent parting, no fiery end, only a patient drifting of a few centimeters a year, easing ever more slowly across billions of years. Whatever endings the sun and the deep future may hold, the story of the moon's leaving itself is written softly, in the quietest hand imaginable. Among all the dramas of the heavens, the colliding galaxies and the exploding stars and the swirling maelstrom around black holes, the moon's slow drifting is a thing of perfect calm, unhurried and untroubled through all the ages. The 174th fact reveals that across a single billion years, at something near the present rate, the moon would drift outward by roughly 38,000 kilometers, a great distance by any human measure, and yet only a small fraction of the vast gulf that already lies between us. Even across 1,000 million years, the moon would remain plainly our companion, a little smaller in the sky, a little more distant, but faithful still and unmistakably near. A billion years is a span so long that whole new orders of life might rise and pass upon the earth. And yet across all of it the moon would move outward by less than a tenth of her present distance, still shining down, still ours. The 175th fact tells us that no matter how far the moon may drift across the ages to come, she remains firmly bound to the earth by gravity, in no danger whatever of ever breaking free and wandering off into the galaxy. She is not escaping us, not fleeing into the wider dark, but only settling into an ever so slightly wider embrace. The bond between the earth and the moon is deep and enduring, a tie that the slow tides may stretch but can never sever. To say the moon is leaving is only to say that she is loosening her nearness by the smallest of measures. She remains and will always remain our own captured and faithful companion. The 176th fact reveals that the whole immense story of the moon's future, the easing retreat, the dying sun, the fading white dwarf, the deepening cold, unfolds across timescales so vast that they gently dissolve all sense of hurry, billions upon billions of years, spans in which whole civilizations, whole species, whole chapters of the Earth's long story might rise and quietly pass away. Against such depths of time, our own brief moment is but a single soft breath. There is a deep peace to be found in this vastness, a sense that our small worries grow gentle and quiet when set against so immense a backdrop, dissolving softly into the calm of the deep cosmic night. The 177th fact tells us that everything we witness of the moon tonight, her size, her distance, her faithful nearness, belongs to just one particular and fleeting frame of an almost endless film. She was nearer once, and will be farther yet, and we happen to be here to see her at just this gentle stage of her long outward journey. It is a rare and quiet privilege simply to be present, to look up, and to see her exactly as she is now. Of all the ages of the earth, and all the faces the moon has worn and will wear, we were given this one, this familiar silver companion in this one calm and fortunate moment of the world. The 178th fact reveals that the deep future of the earth and moon, for all its dying suns and cooling embers, need not weigh heavily upon us tonight. It lies billions of years away, past horizons no worry of ours could ever reach or alter. There is a strange and gentle comfort in such vastness of time, a sense that our small cares grow soft and quiet against so immense a backdrop, easing gently into the deep calm of the cosmic dark. To contemplate the far future is not to be burdened by it but to be freed, for a moment, from the smallness of our hurries, and to rest in the wide and patient stillness of a universe that is in no hurry at all. The 179th fact tells us that to contemplate the far future of the moon is really to practice a kind of gentle letting go, to hold lightly even the seemingly changeless things, the moon in our sky, the length of our day, the steadiness of our seasons, and to rest in the knowledge that all of them drift and change with a slowness far beyond all hurry. There is nothing here to fear, only a deep and quiet wonder to settle softly into. The great lesson of the drifting moon may be simply this, that all things move and change, even the most faithful and constant, and that there is peace, not sorrow, in loosening our grip and letting them gently be. The 180th fact reveals that the moon we see tonight, poised at 384,000 kilometers and drifting outward by a fingernail's width each year, is a companion caught in the long middle of her story. Not at her beginning, close and enormous over a molten earth, nor at her distant end, faint and far, but here, now, faithful and near and softly glowing. She keeps her watch over the earth exactly as she has through every single night that anyone has ever known. And with that thought we may turn our hearts, in these last gentle facts, from the physics of her leaving toward the simple quiet wonder of having her near, tonight, above us in the dark. The 181st fact is that the moon has been humanity's great timekeeper since the very dawn of thought, for the slow cycle of her phases gave us our earliest measure of the passing weeks and months. The very word month is born from the word moon, a quiet echo in our language of how deeply her rhythm is woven into the way we count our days. She has ordered our calendars and our seasons for as long as there have been people to watch her waxing and waning in the sky. Long before clocks or written records, our ancestors marked time by her changing face, and something of that ancient reckoning lingers still in every calendar we keep. The 182nd fact reveals that the tides the moon raises may have played a gentle role in the very long story of life itself. Some scientists imagine that the rhythmic rising and falling of the seas, laying bare the shore and then flooding it once more, may have helped coax early life from the water toward the land across the ages. If so, then our own distant origins may owe a quiet debt to the faithful pull of the moon. The twice-daily breathing of the tides created a shifting borderland between sea and land, neither wholly one nor the other, and it may have been in just such gently changing places that life first learned to leave the water behind. The 183rd fact tells us that the moon has lit the night for every creature that has ever lived upon the earth. By her soft, borrowed glow, countless animals have hunted and traveled and found their way home, their lives quietly attuned to her phases and her light. She is woven deeply into the living fabric of our world, a lamp in the darkness that has guided the wanderings of life across the whole long history of the earth. Creatures beyond counting have timed their journeys and their matings and their migrations to her light and her cycles, so that the moon is not only a companion to us but to the whole of life, a gentle presence in every night the world has ever known. The 184th fact reveals that the moon was the first world beyond the earth that human beings ever touched with their own hands and feet. In reaching her, we took our very first steps into the wider cosmos, and looked back to see our whole home hanging small and blue and fragile in the black. She was the doorway through which we first left the cradle of the earth, and she waits there still, patient and near. Of all the countless worlds scattered through the vast dark, only one has ever felt a human footstep, and it is our own faithful moon, the nearest and dearest of them all, the first rung on the long ladder to the stars. The 185th fact tells us that the footprints left upon the moon by the first explorers may endure for millions of years, with no wind to erase them and no rain to wash them away. Those quiet impressions in the gray dust remain almost exactly as they were first pressed down. Somewhere upon the moon tonight, faint human footprints rest undisturbed in the perfect stillness, a gentle mark of our brief visit, preserved in the silence of that airless world. Long after the people who made them are gone, long after their names are forgotten, those footprints will remain, quietly outlasting whole civilizations, a soft and lasting signature of the age when we first walked upon another world. The 186th fact reveals that even as the moon drifts slowly away, humanity is beginning to reach toward her once again, drawn by her hidden ice and her quiet promise. She may yet become a stepping stone outward, a place to learn how to live beyond the earth, before we venture farther still into the deep. The companion who is so slowly leaving us may also be the one who helps us take our next great steps into the open dark. There is a gentle symmetry in it, that the world drifting away from us is the very world we are drifting back toward, and that our oldest neighbor may become the threshold of our future among the stars. The 187th fact tells us that the very same moon you gaze upon tonight is the very same moon that shone down upon every human being who has ever lived, upon the first people to look up in wonder, upon the builders of ancient monuments and the dreamers of ancient dreams, upon your own distant ancestors and all who will come after you. She is a thread of soft light connecting all the generations, one gentle and unchanging face shared across the whole of human time. When you look at her, you look at what every human eye has looked upon, And in that shared gaze there is a quiet kinship with all the countless souls who have ever paused, as you do now, to wonder at the moon. The 188th fact reveals that though we speak of the moon abandoning us, her leaving is so gentle and so unspeakably slow that in truth she remains as faithful a companion as she has ever been. Across your whole life she will drift away by no more than the width of a small room, imperceptible and utterly unfelt. To every human eye, in every human age that we can foresee, the moon will simply be there, steadfast and constant in the night. The word abandoning is far too harsh for so gentle a thing. She does not leave us as one who departs in haste, but lingers faithful and near, drifting by a fingernail's width while remaining, for all our purposes, forever at our side. The 189th fact tells us that the moon will still be hanging quietly in the Earth's sky long after we and all our works have passed away. She will outlast our cities and our languages and our memories, drifting on in her slow retreat while the long ages roll gently by. There is a deep comfort in this thought, that our small and hurried lives unfold beneath so patient and so enduring a companion, one who was here long before us and will remain long, long after. She asks nothing of us and forgets nothing of us. She simply abides, a constant presence above a changing world, faithful through every rising and setting of the generations. The 190th fact reveals that the far-off day when total eclipses end, some 600 million years from now, lies so unimaginably distant that it need cast no shadow at all upon our rest tonight. Every eclipse of our own age, and of countless ages still to come, will unfold in its full and breathtaking glory. We live comfortably within the long, bright season of the moon's perfect fit, and that season will outlast all human reckoning. So there is no loss for us to mourn, only a wonder to enjoy, for the moon's gifts are ours in full measure, and the distant ending of them lies as far beyond our horizon as the beginning of life lies behind it. The 191st fact tells us that the children of your children, and theirs beyond all counting, will look up at very nearly the same moon you see tonight. Her slow drifting is so gentle that for all the generations we can possibly imagine, she will appear entirely unchanged, the same soft face, the same silver light. In gazing upon her now, you quietly share a sky with every descendant the distant future will ever hold. The moon binds the generations together not only backward into the deep past but forward into the far future, so that your quiet looking tonight is joined to the looking of countless others yet unborn, all beneath the same faithful and familiar moon. The 192nd fact reveals that the story of the moon's leaving is not, in the end, a story of loss at all, but of a slow and gentle unfolding written into the deep and beautiful laws of the cosmos. It is the same tides, the same conservation of motion, the same patient gravity that shaped the seas and steadied our world and lit our nights. Her drifting away is simply the far quiet edge of the very forces that have cradled the earth through all its living ages. To understand her leaving is not to grieve it but to marvel at it, for it flows from the same gentle laws that have made our world a home, and it carries no sorrow, only wonder. The 193rd fact tells us that the moon does not truly abandon us in any hurried or unkind way, but only drifts, by the width of a growing fingernail, a little farther into the dark each year. It is not a parting made in haste, nor a leaving born of sorrow, but the slow and lawful arithmetic of two worlds bound together in an ancient embrace, gently, patiently loosening across spans of time we can scarcely begin to hold within the mind. She goes as gently as anything in all the universe goes, so softly and so slowly that her leaving looks, to any living eye, exactly like staying, like faithfulness itself, like a companion who will never truly go. The 194th fact reveals that for all the billions of years still to come, through every age we or our descendants could ever hope to know, the moon will remain our steadfast and faithful companion in the sky, near enough to light our nights, to stir our seas, to steady our turning, and to grace us with her quiet beauty. Her leaving is real, and yet it is so slow that it changes nothing of the gentle presence she keeps over us tonight. When you gaze up at her, you may hold both truths together softly, that she is drifting away, and that she is here, faithful and near and glowing, exactly as she has always been. The 195th fact tells us that when you understand at last why the moon is slowly drawing away, the knowing does not diminish her, but only deepens the quiet wonder of looking up at her. For now you see the whole great dance hidden behind her soft and simple face, the tides and the spinning and the patient trading of motion across the dark. She is more beautiful, not less, for the deep and gentle physics that carries her so slowly away. To know the reason for her drifting is to see her more truly, and to feel, beneath her familiar light, the vast and calm machinery of the cosmos turning quietly on, exactly as it has for all the ages. The 196th fact reveals that all of it, the receding moon, the lengthening day, the fading eclipses, the steadied and gentle tilt, flows from the quietest of causes, the soft and ceaseless pull of gravity between two bound and drifting worlds. There is no drama in it, no violence, no haste, only the gentle working out of a law as old as the universe itself, playing softly across the ages between the earth and her one enduring companion in the night. And so we come, at the last, from the great sweep of deep time back to this single quiet moment. To you, resting here beneath the moon, held gently in the same slow forces that turn the whole wide sky. The 197th fact is that as you lie here now, warm and still and softly breathing, the moon 384,000 kilometers away is gently pulling upon the very water within the seas, and within the living earth, and in some faint and quiet measure upon you as well. You are held, this very moment, in the same slow embrace that shapes the tides and turns the great wheel of the sky. There is nothing you need to do about it, and nothing you could ever do. You have only to rest, and to let yourself be held, as the seas are held, as the whole world is held, gently and faithfully, beneath the drifting moon. The 198th fact tells us that with every year that quietly passes, the moon slips a few soft centimeters farther into the dark, no faster than a fingernail grows, patient and unhurried and utterly without any fear. There is nothing here to grasp at, nothing to hold too tightly, only a gentle drifting that has gone on since long before the first life ever stirred in the sea, and will go on long after this night has faded softly into memory. Let her slow and fearless leaving teach you something of how to rest, to loosen your own grip on the day now ending, and to drift, as she drifts, gently and without any hurry at all. The 199th fact reveals that long after this night, long after all our nights, the moon will still be there, a little farther out, a little smaller in the sky, and yet faithful still turning her same soft and patient face toward the earth she has never truly left, and something in that steadfastness, that patient and enduring nearness across all the ages, is deeply and quietly consoling. She is a companion who drifts, but never abandons, who loosens her embrace by the width of a fingernail and yet holds fast across the eons. A gentle presence that will keep its watch over the sleeping world long, long after you and I have drifted off into our own quiet rest. The 200th fact is that as you finally let go of this day and drift softly down into sleep, the moon is drifting too, gently and slowly outward through the calm and open dark, keeping her ancient and faithful watch over the sleeping earth, exactly as she has through every single night that anyone has ever known. Let her soft and borrowed light settle over you now, and let the slow and patient rhythm of the tides she raises carry your breathing down into stillness. There is nothing left to hold, nothing left to do, nowhere at all you need to be, Only here, only now, resting beneath that gentle and enduring companion as she drifts quietly through the dark at your side. Rest now, sleep well, and thank you for drifting with me beyond the stars.